left. Actually got the ball. Good afternoon, Tottenham fans. Welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boys, Dave and Jack, as we build up to tonight's game against Coventry in the Carabao Cup third round, which I cannot wait. And if we do go through, we have to wait until the 25th of September to find out who we get in the next round due to Champions League games and stuff like that. But as you can see, we've got a nice collective panel here tonight, various different thoughts and stuff like that for the show on the build up to this game. Before we go around and find out how everybody is, we are playing at the Coventry Building Society Arena. Hopefully, no pun intended, but it's the building blocks for this Ange Postecoglou era moving forward. Kickoff is also at 8 p.m. tonight. Referee is Darren England. There is no VAR in action tonight. I, for one, find that very, very refreshing. And then if you want to watch the game on TV, is on Sky Sports in the UK and Ireland. Probably bought the rights because they're waiting for a cup shock. USA, it's on Paramount Plus, and in Australia is in Optus Sports. So that's everything you guys need to know. Jack, how are you, sir?
Doing all right, Dave. I noticed that I made a mistake in our Twitter post for the watch along today, calling it that we were playing Newcastle again. So it just shows where my head is back. I'm 2 games back. I still haven't caught up with where we are now in the present. Looking forward to what should be a win. I think that's what our mentality should be, is that we should expect to win this game. Whether we will or not is, we'll find out in a few hours' time. But yeah, Dave, we have to go deep into a cup. It's a different competition. It's nice that it's not the Premier League. Get to have no VAR as well. It will be fun to see, see actually the linesman working for once, getting up and down the pitch, actually forced to make a call. And yeah, looking forward to it, Dave. Cup time is on.
Do you know what? It's just a nice, refreshing break away from the league, to be brutally honest. The rigors and the routines, it's do or die, and I absolutely love these sort of games. We are joined by Eugene as well. You might have seen him on the fan shows in the comment sections around various channels. Eugene, how are you keeping, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Michael, Soren. Good to be on with you guys. I'm excited. I just hope for everybody's mental health we win this. It's our cup final, given what's happening with the fan base and all the pressure on the club. So I hope it's going to be a nice, easy victory, but it never is. So let's see what happens.
It's never an easy victory at Tottenham Hotspur. That's something I've definitely started learning since the Pochettino days. That's for sure. We're also joined by Mick as well. As you know, you've seen him on the fan shows, seen him on shows across other channels as well. Michael, didn't get the floods. How are you, my man? You safe and sound?
Not yet. The flooding hasn't started yet, but it's apparently prognosed to be like today, tomorrow, on Friday. So the worst is still ahead of us. But thankfully, I live on the 6th floor, so I'm not in any danger myself. We are stockpiled on water and food and all that stuff, right? So we will be safe. It's just a bit of a pain to everyone else living on 1st floor.
Well, hopefully Tottenham can start winning, while you're bunkered down and stuff like that, and make it even better. And then on to Soren as well, returning, as you can see here, every single week. Absolutely love this guy. Soren, how are you, my man?
I'm good. I'm so looking forward to either winning the match tonight or no meltdown afterwards. It's got to be, hasn't it? We've got to just have a match with no meltdown. Please, come on, you Spurs.
I would hope so. We just need that victory. We just need a morale boosting victory today. Get into the next round of the cup, so that we can have a few days where we can just sort of be happy for a little while heading into that Brentford game. That would be very, very nice. Let's welcome some people into the chat, and then we're going to crack on and get straight into it. Big up, Eddie, as well. Great to see you. He says we need to get a win here to give Ange some breathing room. Spot on. Scotty Hynam says big up to all. Come on, you Spurs. Great to see you, Scotty. Hopefully you're keeping well. We have maximum feeling. Yes, crew. Cheltenham inside. Come on, you Spurs. Big up. Presume you're from Cheltenham. Do you go to the races? Let me know. You got Gary Wellsby says, looking forward to seeing Bergvall, etc. Great to see the passion that I feel about Spurs from both of you. Do you know what? Really appreciate that. Sometimes, well, lately, it hasn't, it's been more anger than passion, to be brutally honest with you. Hopefully today it will be pure passion, glee, seeing us score a couple of goals, hopefully seeing some of these youngsters, which we'll get into talk about. Do people want to see it? Do people think he has to put out a strong team? We all know what happened against Fulham last season, so that is a talking point I will be getting into a bit in the show. But big up, Gary. Good to see you, sir. We've also got Moondog. Great to see you, Moondog. He says, I want a good performance tonight after that crap. This is for you, Dave and Jack. Just showing my support. Nah, big up, Moondog. Really do appreciate that. But any bets on today, please let me know in the chat. You know, if you got a sneaky bet on Bergval or over 2.5 goals or something like that, you know.
Hey, is that a reference? Is that a reference to the panel or the match?
Probably the panel, you know. I don't, you know, a bit at this moment in time, we don't know. Let's wait and see. But big up, Moondog. Please do let us know. Christmas is coming up. You know, we all need to make a bit of money here or there. So let us know if we can do it with a nice bet for today's game. Danny Darko Spurs says, oi, come on, you Spurs. Big up the panel. Is the writing on the wall for Ange if we lose this? For me, I think it is not to be bothered about the league this season. Cup team this year be good for me. Look, one thing we were Tottenham were always, you know, in my lifetime, well, a lot of my lifetime, specifically my dad's lifetime, was a very good cup team. You know, that's where we picked up a lot of our couple of cups over the decades and stuff like that. Last couple of years, we haven't really gotten close to, you know, picking up trophies or getting knocked out at the earliest opportunities. Now it's time to put that right and set the wheels in motion going forward. Big up Paddy Harnett, Ribbon Jack there. Good to see you in the house. Hopefully you're keeping well, Paddy. We've also got Dale 20. Hello, Irish Grave Street, and good to see you in the house, my man. We've got Too Damn Soulful disagreed with Harry Redknapp the other day, saying we have no X Factor. Play for me. Bergval is that man. Come on, you Spurs. Well, look, it's just waiting for Postecoglou to give him that chance to prove that he's that man. Hopefully it comes tonight and hopefully he takes it. Big up, Soulful. Stephen Owen says, I won't hold my breath for tonight. I don't think anybody is. I think people are expecting the worst and hoping the best. Look, if we lose to Coventry, we've got massive problems. Foggy Foam says, big up the lovely full panel. Hope all is well, guys. Midweek Cup game away from the home always brings nightmares. It does. Hopefully tonight we change that, though. Jazzy Fusion, never disagree with Harry. Good to see you, Jazzy Fusion. Hopefully you're keeping well. Matt Byam says, big up Dave and Jack, lads. Come on, you Spurs. Time for the young lads to shine. And Eddie also says it's on beIN Sports, not up this in Australia. Do you know what? I got caught out there, Eddie. I seen that it was in the USA, Paramount Plus, and then, because it's usually every Spurs game is on Optus Sports. That's what Paul Hotspur Hippie tells me anyway. So I blame him for that one. So you need to go and blame him for that one, Eddie. Big up, though. Good to see you. We've got Daddy Bibby, good afternoon all. Come on, you Spurs. Good to see you. We've got Matty Shamolov, 4-0 for the Spurs. Hopefully, that'll be absolutely lovely. Big up James Flower. Great to see you. Says, come on, you Spurs. Georgia Hill, 4-1 Spurs. Trouncing on the way, lads. I really do hope so. Lindstrom says, ready for a win. I think we all need one, to be brutally honest with you. Dan Gay's support service. We need some goals and to win, and a win to give this team some confidence. That's for sure. And then we've got Bingai. When healthy, Richarlison is so much better than Solanke, even though the both are rubbish. The real problem is we keep buying rubbish players and people put them on a pedestal with no achievement. Fair enough. We will get into a conversation about Solanke a little bit later on. Through the Fog says, come on, you Spurs. Good to see you. We've also got John Lee. We need Sonny to score a goal, not carrying our team. Son's always carrying our team. That's the thing. If he doesn't, score or assist, we don't get a result usually. And that's where our biggest problem is. Other people need to start stepping up, to be brutally honest with you. James Flowers says everyone needs to get behind Ange. And then we've got We Are Spurs TV. What's going on, everyone? Big up Jack and Dave. Good to see you, my man. Ellie in Vegas. Good morning. Come on, you Spurs. Let's have it. Good to see you, Ellie. Rick in Brighton. Big up, lads, and chat.
Big up, Rick.
We've got Thomas in Ireland. Says, hello, everyone. Good to see you. And then we've also got Berbatov's halftime smoke in Bulgaria. A big win is needed today. Good to see you. And then we've got Inakoma. He's become a new YouTube member. Really appreciate the support. Inakoma, big yourself up and welcome to the community.
Became a fan show member. Thank you, Inakoma. But I think he's been a member for a while now, so very, very generous. Appreciate that.
Hopefully we see you on a fan show soon. That would be nice, Inakoma. But good to see you in the house. But look, guys, enough of that flapping around, flirting with each other. Let's get straight into the nitty-gritty and start talking Tottenham. Jack, Tottenham's current trophy drought stands at a long 16 years since Jonathan Woodgate's extra-time goal saw Chelsea beating 2-1 in the 07-08 League Cup final at Wembley under Wendy Ramos. Does the Carabao Cup represent Tottenham's best chance of silverware this season?
It shows how much of a glory hunter I was that I joined Spurs kind of just after they won that Carabao Cup. I kind of thought, you know what, maybe this is the right time to start picking a Premier League side. But boy, was I, in for something, in for a roller coaster. Is the League Cup, the Carabao Cup, an easier of the trophies to achieve? I don't really think so, because it ends up being kind of a competition where you will face a Man City, you will face a really good Liverpool, or you will face a really good Arsenal or something like that at some point in the run. And technically, any of those teams are better than what you would come up against in the Europa League. At least that's my opinion. I think the Europa League does have some good teams, but I think the majority of the Premier League sides that do make it deep into the League Cup are probably better on their day than any of those Europa League sides. And also as well, like it feels like the League Cup, you know, you start it early, but then it's kind of like, it's not like it's a consistent competition. It feels like, unless I'm wrong here, you play like every 3 or 4 weeks or something like that in it. There's no real like, you know, continual, you know, kind of flow to it, or, you know, a rhythm to it. You kind of just randomly play in a League Cup match, and you have to really be on for it. You have to be really focused, kind of hits you at different stages of your form throughout the season. So I wouldn't say it's actually the easiest of them, Dave. I think might be bold to say this. I think the Europa League is technically an easier competition for us to really prioritize.
Interesting. Does anyone else disagree with that? Because I sort of do. I think the Carabao Cup is the easiest one. Obviously, it depends on the draw. You do have to face some Premier League opponent along the way. But, you know, in years gone by, you've seen that year we made the final against Man City before they sacked Jose Mourinho. The cup draw was very kind to us. We ended up playing at Brentford, that were in the Championship at the time, in the semi-final. So does anyone disagree with Jack there, guys?
Yeah. Sort of same as what you've just said. If you do get a good draw, then the League Cup can be the easiest route. Saying that, I do get what he's saying about the European Cup this year, that, you know, it does look on paper an easier route. But again, you are going to play some decent, you know, you are going to play somebody decent in that competition at some point. So I think it's with any cup, it's a matter of luck and the draw. You know, if you get a good draw, you can go all the way. I mean, we've seen over the past few years how smaller teams have still managed to get semis and finals. You know, it does happen. So I think, you know, the League Cup can be an absolute twat of a thing. If you get a Man City very early on, or a Liverpool, or a Man United, then you know. But then again, you could just get the small teams all the way through to the final. So it's pot luck.
Well, go on.
Yeah, I actually think, because like, and correct me if I'm wrong on you guys, right? But as far as I'm concerned, in League Cup, only teams from like Premier League, Championship, and League One participate, right? League Two and below don't participate in the League Cup, whereas in the FA Cup, all the teams from England participate, right? So technically, purely by like probability, there is a higher chance of getting like a lower level team in the FA Cup, right? But I think the prestige of the cup is much different, right? A lot of like big teams will treat FA Cup much more seriously than they do the Carabao Cup, right? And it's also fans, right? It kind of seeps to the team, right? If the fans really want to do something to be taken seriously, then the team does so too, right? But I've seen plenty of like, you know, Arsenal fans and City fans saying that they don't really give a crap about Carabao Cup, right? Whereas the FA Cup has the prestige. That's the way I see it, right? So in that sense, I agree that Carabao Cup is easier because like teams don't treat it as seriously as they do with FA Cup, right?
No, 100%. And the interesting thing is as well, in the next round, you know, we're open to get one of the big 6 teams. We were purposely kept apart in the third round draw, but, you know, going into the next round, it opens us up to be able to get one of them. I know, you know, Carabao Cup, it sort of needs a good tie to keep it interesting. I wouldn't be surprised to see a North London derby, you know, in the next round or something like that, which I would like to avoid, to be brutally honest with you. Eugene, over to you, my man. Tottenham have only won 2 of their last 11 away games. Are we fearful Coventry will likely see this as a major opportunity to cause an upset? And what do we have to do to avoid that happening tonight? Because it's easy going, look, it's just Coventry, it's not going to happen. But we've Pacos de Ferreira, NS Moore, they're worse teams than Coventry. You know, some of the teams we've been knocked out to in cups as well. League Cup, FA Cup, we've gone out to likes of Colchester, teams like that as well. So what do we have to do to avoid that big cup shock tonight? Because everyone fancies it against us.
You're on mute.
Apologies.
No, you're out.
It's going to be interesting what lineup Ange puts out. I definitely think Coventry likes their chances. They almost beat Man U last year, right? It was a toenail difference between the winning and losing. So I feel like they would be somewhat confident. It's interesting what lineup Ange puts out if he plays the kids, who actually I really want to see play in the preseason. They did much better than our first 11. So I really want to see Archie Gray and Bergvall. I don't know about Moore. I would love to see him too, because I feel like even with them, we should have enough in the squad to beat Coventry. But like I said, it's interesting who Ange puts out. But Coventry, yeah, from their perspective, I'm sure they're pretty confident playing us right now, given our form and all the pressure on the squad.
And they're not going to be a walkover either. You know, they turned up against Man United. They got a run to the semi-final of the FA Cup last season. And to be brutally honest, they should have bet Man United. And they do have players that can cause us danger. And they do have players that will cause us danger from set pieces. But for me, it's about attitude tonight. It's about desire. It's about determination. We will get into the lineup in a little bit, because I do believe Ange Postecoglou needs to freshen up tonight for his own sake, because I know a lot of people would rather us go strong tonight, or what they would deem our strongest 11. But for me, it looks like a team that needs freshening up. They lack belief with each other. It's slow. It's predictable. You know, stuff like that. I would argue going strong tonight would be making some changes. But we'll hold fire before we get into the lineup, guys. I do want to start off with Soren on this question, and then we'll go around the houses, guys. You can all butt in and have your say on this one. Soren, it's inevitable to avoid heading into this game. There's a lot of scrutiny and pressure on Ange Postecoglou at Spurs at the minute. He's made the worst start for Tottenham Hotspur in 9 years. We have lost 7 of our last 11 games. We have had 7 London derbies against Chelsea, Arsenal, and West Ham. We've drawn 2, lost 5, and picked up 0 wins. But on the flip side, Ange Postecoglou is not used to having such a low win percentage. It's one of his lowest in his career if you go and look back at the clubs he's been at. But the stats are shocking. Is this a man struggling in a job that's too big for him? Or is this a man going through a painful rebuild that needs more time to gel the squad, given such a large turnover over a player since his arrival?
I think that's the $1 million question, isn't it? The thing, I mean, we all kind of look at it and say, look, this is the biggest job of his career. You know, you can say managing your national team, you can say going into leagues and transforming those teams to win leagues and whatever. But coming into the Premiership it's a big job. And it's an even bigger job coming to Tottenham and trying to get success. We've seen some of the best managers in the world fail at the job. Whether we want to blame hierarchy or what, you know, that's up to other people. But I just think that for me personally, and I know a lot of people disagree with me, but I see the improvements. I think there are improvements in this squad. And I think there are improvements in the way we play, the way that the whole structure of the team is, and everything. The only thing that's kind of missing is the little bit of luck that we need to start putting some of these goals away. We just need a few more chances. And if we say, well, it's the worst start to a season. Well, last year was the best start to a season. And yes, it helped us at the end get 5th, but didn't really set the stepping stone for the whole season, did it? We didn't go on and challenge for the title or anything. So, you know, it's one of those that if it clicks tonight and then we start seeing a slow progression, then the start doesn't mean anything. I mean, how bad were Arsenal at the beginning of last season? How bad was City? I mean, I know we're not Arsenal, we're not City, but you know, it just needs to start to click. And for me, the fundamentals are there. And you know, I know there are a lot of people starting to lose faith and think that Ange can't do the job. But, you know, I still back him. I still think he'll come good. And some of our most successful managers in the past have taken 2 or 3 seasons before they've got anywhere to do anything. You know, it's not an overnight success. And look, we've been saying since Poch, since the cup final with Poch, it needs a painful rebuild. Well, a painful rebuild doesn't happen overnight. We've got to be patient. And what is the point in getting rid of Ange now? Who are we going to get in? And then we start another painful rebuild. Well, by the end of the season, everyone's saying, oh, he's not going to last next season. Well, this time last year, everybody that wants Ange out now was all telling us he wouldn't last the season. He lasted the season. Now we're told he's not going to last till December. Well, let's see in December. But look, it's about time as a fan base we actually got behind the manager for once. The board seem to be doing it. They're giving him the money. Whether they're getting him the right players is a different question. But Ange has come out and said that he's happy with these players. So it's all on him. But we are at a stage now where we have to see that turn of a corner. We've got to start seeing it. We've got to start seeing goals go in. I mean, you know, we've lost 2 games this season. We haven't lost them by a lot. We haven't been tranced or anything like that. We're not losing them 4-5-0. We're losing them 1-0 or something like that. So, you know, it's not disastrous yet for me. I mean, I know people will disagree, but I still think there is, you know, it will come good. I still believe.
Well, Paul says here, Soren, it's not luck. It's the poor quality of our play in the final third. We brought Solanke when we should have got Tony. Our transfer business this year has been shocking. We needed experience. Is that a contributing factor to what we're seeing right now as well?
I don't think Tony would have made any difference in this team, to be honest with you. Because, I mean, it's like we spoke about before we started. It's not necessarily the fall, you know, the actual striker that's at fault. It's the wingers. The wingers are not providing the right sort of ball through. And, you know, whether we think Brennan Johnson's not good enough, Timo Werner, or whoever is playing for us, they're not doing the job that is needed. You know, unless Solanke is expected to go through and do it all on his own, well, it's not going to happen. And he's played, what, 2 games for us out of the 4. He's not match fit yet. And we're already on his back. I mean, it just baffles me that people are so quick to want to moan about everything instead of just trying to get behind the team and actually cheer them on and give them some confidence. I mean, you know, if I was a professional footballer and went on the pitch and everyone's just booing and shouting and telling me I'm not good enough, then I'm not going to put in a performance. You know, I can understand. Look at it. You know, some of them are kids. I mean, I've got kids older than these players.
Because you wouldn't think that, Soren.
Well, obviously I know, but you know, it's about time we just actually got behind the team. And you know, when they have a stinker, then you've got to come out and you've got to criticize them. And I understand that, but you know, it's got to be constructive criticism, not just criticizing for the sake of it. It's just boring sometimes. And you know, I get the frustration. I'm not saying anything, you know, it's all perfect. But you know, come on. We all wanted Conte out, or a lot of people wanted Conte out, I'll rephrase that. Because the football was absolutely boring. And then we suddenly get a different style of football, and we don't want that neither. Well, what do we want? Yeah, we all want a cup and we all want to win something, and I get that. But sometimes you just got to be patient. And I know before people start chucking at me, it's been 20 odd years, you know, and I get that. And yes, you know, I'm one of the lucky ones at my age that I've seen us lift cups and things like that. And a lot of our fan base haven't. And I get the frustrations, but we're not a team that's going to win overnight. It's not going to happen. So, you know, everybody tells us we're not a top 6 club, or we're not a big club, and then in the next breath it's, well, why aren't we winning everybody? Well, if we're not a top 6 club, why should we expect to win them? Where does this come from? I just think it's time to get behind the team and actually support the team we're supposed to support.
Michael, is Ange out of his depth, or is he just going through a painful rebuild?
How do I put it? I don't necessarily think he's like out of his depth. I think that's a very definitive statement. I think if you are out of your depth, that means that there is no saving of the situation, right? I think if you are out of your depth, there is only one outcome, and that is like losing your job. That's the way I would put it, right? And I don't think that he is at this point. But I've been consistent in what I was saying, which was that I need to see improvements, and I also think that Ange is in a very peculiar situation where the club that he is the manager of, like the fan base is, it's really strange, because on one hand I think we are really demanding in terms of like, you want a trophy, right? I think if I asked any single one of you if you would trade like being top 8 for a trophy, I think all of you would agree, right? So in that sense, I think, and by the way, I don't mean demanding as in a bad thing, right? I think we are like all within our right to be that sort of demanding, right? We are a big club, in my opinion, not as big as Arsenal or United or Liverpool, right? But we are still a big club, right? And I think big clubs pride themselves on the trophies they win, and unfortunately, we've been not able to do that, right? So I think Ange has to take those cups seriously, and I still stand by the fact that for me personally, this Coventry game is even more important than the North London derby, right? Because I don't see us with a chance of winning the league. I don't think our squad is there, and I don't think we have enough quality. But I fully think that we should and could win a Carabao Cup, right? That's assuming, of course, we don't meet like Manchester City in the next round, right? Because that probably means that we will most likely go out of the cup, right? But in terms of that's in terms of like the cup approach, right? But I also think tactically, I've been growing a bit frustrated with some parts of our game, but I don't think those are unfixable, right? I think you can adjust the game plan. I think you can adjust the squad to actually fix those issues. And I don't think that those are like drastic changes where you need to completely shift the way you play. And, I'm not saying about going into, 11 behind the ball, park the bus and long balls to Solanke, right? Because I just, that's not what this squad is suited to, right? But I think there are small differences that we should make. Small changes that we should make that would, in my opinion, definitely improve our game, right? So, and I think given time and patience, I hope that the manager will see those, right? But as I said, I'm consistent. If he doesn't, if we keep playing like we are playing for the next 30 games, then I will have to start. I am already like making serious questions, right? But I think I will have to be a bit more definite in my opinion, right, of the manager. But right now, he still has my like full confidence and full backing, right? That's the way I see it, right? And I understand if someone is of a different opinion, but that I'm talking for myself, right?
You're on mute, Dave.
Yeah.
Bloody hell, I thought this was a professional show.
Do you know what? Sorry, I didn't want to
Came
hear
to the wrong
people hear
place,
me.
Soren.
I didn't want to hear people hear me breathing down the mic, and the missus rang me there a few minutes ago as well. So, but Eugene, where do you stand on it? Football Heritage, this is Savvy, says, is the squad as bad as the results for 10 months show? That shows. That tells me what I need to know about the manager and his inability to adjust and improve. Where do you stand with the results and look, all the stats that surround it right now? Like I said, is he a man that this job is too big for him, and he needs to be sacked, or is he a guy, where we're going through that bit of a painful rebuild now, and with the high turnover of players since he's arrived over the course of the 2 seasons, a man struggling to sort of get his squad together and a man that needs more time to do it?
Look, it's never one thing or another, right? It's not just black and white. It's funny, we're having the same conversation every year for the past 7-8 years, right? Like exactly the same conversation.
And it's becoming exhausting, Eugene.
Right. No, it is. And obviously, as most fans can agree, I hope, Ange does need to be more flexible, right? He does need to adjust to teams that we play versus saying, this is the way we play and that's it, right? He needs to be adjusting. I'm not saying adjusting, the formation or the playing style, but he needs to make some tweaks depending on who we play. On the other hand, all that talk of high line, set piece defending, at least this year, is overblown. Looking back at the games, I don't think we conceded most goals due to tactics, right? Every goal we conceded is an individual mistake. Romero himself cost us 4 goals this year, right? Against Arsenal, high line was not the issue. They're a great set piece team. Set piece defending was okay. It's just Romero lost his one-on-one battle with Gabriel, right? So I think some of it is on Ange, and of course he's an easy target because he's the manager, and ultimately he'll be responsible for how we do. But just if you look at the breakdown of how our front three plays, we get so many chances, so many opportunities, and every time we make the wrong decision. Kulusevski has the ball in the final third, he makes the wrong decision. Johnson is Johnson. Son is being timid for some reason. He's not taking any shots from the outside. There is no way that Ange is telling them, don't shoot. Let's walk the ball into the net every single time, or do the same thing again and again and again. I just feel like individual players are making mistakes and letting us down. But on the other hand, Ange has to take some responsibility too. I agree with Michael. I don't care where we finish in the league this year. It's all about cups. If we finish 10th, I'm all good with that. I can care less, right? For me, either you win or that's it. Top 4 would be nice, but to me, it doesn't matter as much as we have to have a good showing in the cups. Carabao Cup would be great, but Europa is what I want to go for. There is no reason why we cannot go far in that competition, or actually in every competition. So yeah, that's my view on thing. I'm still engine, as I said before. I give every manager 2 years to show what he can do, because otherwise, we bring in players, we bring in a different manager, those players are deadwood, and the cycle continues. I would give Ange 2 years, unless if we lose to Coventry, if we lose our next game, then it's going to be tough, right? And it doesn't matter if it's Ange's fault or players' fault, right? If your form is as bad as it is right now for us, the manager ultimately has to take the fall. But on the other hand, the players need to step up as well. So I want to see how we do in the next few games and in the cup games.
On that point, sorry, just quickly on that point. I was having a conversation with someone last night, and for me, someone put a question to me last night. Dave, do you think these players are playing for the manager? As the manager lost the dressing room, and when I look at the first 11 that he puts out there, or what he trusts as his first 11, the only real change that's been in it from last season, or that he's added into it, is Dominic Solanke. The rest of it's still more the same. And when I look at their fight and desire to get back into games, or as soon as a little bit goes against them in the game, to really claw it back. On one hand, I look at it and go, is there that element there to, like under Conte, where they're sort of just doing enough but not trying hard enough for us? But then I also look at it, are they just a team that needs freshening up? And Ange Postecoglou needs to start using some of these new signings to freshen that up, and that could be what kickstarts to get it going. But I think tonight, if he makes changes and some of these youngsters come in like they did on preseason and go out there, put the effort, the energy in and desire, and they actually go and play Coventry off the park tonight, I think questions do need to be asked of the playing squad rather than so much on the management side of things going forward for the next little while anyway. But I think tonight will probably give me the definitive answer for that. Before I rudely cut across there, did someone want to come in?
I just wanted to say, actually, that part of the painful rebuild is, we're seeing in kind of the players that are kind of letting Ange down, in my opinion, from, the likes of Brennan Johnson to other players in the team that I just think are dramatically underperforming, and also just letting us down on consistent occasions where they are in really good positions and they're just not doing what Ange is probably instructing, or they're just not playing like top class players that should be at Spurs, in these moments and in these games. And so part of the painful rebuild is I do think we have a squad that's incredibly inconsistent, and a lot of games is just really poor with what should be really good opportunities for what they are, which are Premier League players, or at least they're supposed to be Premier League quality players. And a lot of times I'm scratching my head whether they are even Premier League quality players in the positions they find themselves in. And I think Ange is having to deal with that right now, and that makes it a painful rebuild. The part that I'm a little concerned about is you do look at his record over the last, 44 points in 32 games. I mean, that is shocking.
Yeah.
And also
7 losses in our last 11 games.
and also
Right.
his London record against most of the clubs that do hate us, West Ham, Chelsea, Arsenal, etc. His record against them is shocking. And when you take that into consideration, it's a bit of both. Where Ange, I think he is being let down by the players, and a lot of the games he's being let down by his players, where I don't think it's much of his fault. But there are some games that he really should have been winning to kind of maintain confidence from the club, from the fans, from the players in him as well. And he hasn't been able to get over the line. And there's some pretty bad managers, I think, in the Premier League, like Eric Ten Hag, for example, who's kept his job by just getting over the line in certain games, by just getting 3 points magically. Luckily, I don't really care. He was able to do that, and it kind of saved himself from getting sacked. Whereas with Ange, there's been a lot of games where I think even if the players are letting him down, he needs to find a way to win. He needs to find a way to get over the line, even if it's pretty, if it's not pretty, I don't really care. You Spurs need to find a way sometimes to just win ugly if you need to, or show a bit more game management, show a bit more caution. You don't have to constantly play the exact same way every single game, or also not even consider the threats of the opponent every game. That's another thing that he doesn't really do exactly, is he'll look at maybe how we play every single time instead of looking at how the opposition could hurt us. And I think he could have saved himself, some games by just focusing more on how they might have hurt us from set pieces, or, what are their danger men up front that would, hurt us in the transition. And there are times where Ange Postecoglou, I think, has lost games where, yes, the players let him down, but he needed to find a way to still win it, even if the players are not as good as they should be. So it's a bit of both for me. The painful rebuild is we brought in some players that I don't think are good enough. Timo Werner, Brennan Johnson. I think there are a couple more that are also letting us down, like James Maddison, who's had a good start to the season, but I still don't think he's lived up to the 50 million that we originally brought him in for. And it's hard for Ange, where I think some of the guys he brought in are supposed to be good players. They're not playing like good players, but he has a terrible, terrible record over 32 games. That's practically a whole season of games, and that would be a relegation form team. And he needs to find a way to just get more wins, even if they aren't convincing. I'll be honest, like Jose as well as Conte, I think it was torrid football at times, but there were plenty of games where they just won the game 1-0, 2-1, wasn't pretty, and we just got over the line. And I think he needs to do that a bit more often in order to honestly save his job, because I don't think you can have this type of form for a club as big as Spurs. I think you could have this form if you were trying to do a painful rebuild with Fulham, with Brighton, with teams like that. But a team like Spurs, a club like Spurs, with the attention that we get, I don't think you can have this type of record. And so he needs to turn it around quickly. But I do think a huge part of it is just the players have been letting him down on a consistent basis.
100%. Just before we let other people back in there, just quickly, these two stats here, they're one comment after another, which I find is amazing. Shows how divisive it can be, and how different people are looking at it. You've got this from Cantab. Sky just showed that our last 11 games chart, we lost 7, scored 15, conceded 20. Inakoma says at that any second season's first 14 games, he only had 14 points. Ange needs his time, and everyone just needs to relax. And also, I think when you go back to 9 years ago, where our worst start to the season, I believe we actually finished third that season, believe it or not. So, which is mad. So there's still sort of two ways to look at this, and this is where we're at as a fan base right now. What way are people looking at, or what way are the majority of people looking at it? Sorry, Michael, go ahead.
No, I think firstly with the Arteta comment, right, and this kind of comes back to what I said, right, whether we want to argue if it was his team or not or whatever, right. Arteta won an FA Cup, and that bought him one hell of credit in the bank, right. I think this Arsenal fan base still wanted him out during that run, right. I think they had no wins in 9 games or something like that, right. And the fan base still wanted him out, but that FA Cup, I think, saved him in the eyes of the ownership too, in my opinion, because I think if he was just failing and didn't win the FA Cup and was having the form that he had at that point, I think they would pull the trigger. But the FA Cup kind of gave them like the Arsenal board some kind of assurance or hope, right? And I think I also wanted to like add on to the point that Jack made, right, with the rebuild and all that stuff. I think the worst issue for me is that we as a fan base are getting really contradicting messages from the club and from the manager himself, right? Because I think with the actions of the club and the transfer windows that we've been witnessing recently, right, it looks as if we were doing a rebuild, right? Buying young players. Like if you look at the average age of players that we've brought in under Ange, it's like 23 or 24 or something like that, right? I think the oldest player that we brought in is either Madison or Solanke, if I recall correctly, right? So, and they aren't old. So it looks as if we were doing a rebuild, but the message we get from Ange, for example, is and listen, I don't want to like harp on the comment, right? But he's saying he wants to win. He wins in the second season, right? The challenge is or he says the aim is to win the league, right? And I think us as a fan base, we hear that from our manager, and then we see the transfer window, which doesn't reflect what he's saying, and also our recent form, as you guys mentioned, doesn't reflect that we are in a title challenge or a trophy challenge or of any sorts, right? We won 4 in the last 11, so it's hard for us as a fan base to actually believe what he's saying, right? And I think this is the biggest issue. And for me, the only way to repair it is to actually start winning the bloody games, right? As simple as it may sound, right? But I think if we win against Coventry, we win against Brentford, Carabao, and let's say we win against someone else, right? And then we go on a bit of a win streak. Maybe like there's a bit of belief starts creeping back into us, right? Because right now, I think many of us are just a bit like, how should I put it? Like we are a bit disillusioned, right? We cannot really get behind the project because nothing shows us that we should, right? As a fan base. And I think that's why we have so many differing opinions. That's the way I look at it, right?
No, 100%. And look, I think tonight's game is absolutely huge. When you hear him doubling down about wanting to win trophies and that he always wins in his second year, the way he doubled down on it, I think tonight is absolutely huge for him. And it's something that I'll put to you guys. I have 2 more questions around Ange Postecoglou, and then we're going to move on to what sort of lineup we think he should pick. But what was I saying? I lost my train of thought there now. Can't remember. Jack, what was I saying beforehand?
I'm not sure, but DJ Samuel, Dave, he sent in the super sticker, and he's just flying high. He's super Ange Postecoglou with this sticker here. He's flying through the sky. He's flying through the sky. Very lovely to see. And this would be nice to this is what Spurs fans want to be feeling like. Right now, it feels like we're just a lead balloon of a fan base where we're just waiting to be lifted up again. And I'm such a happy clapper that if we even win this game, like I said, ugly 2-1 win, I'll be celebrating it for the next 3 days until we get to the Brentford game.
Yeah,
I need a win desperately. I need to be flying high. Sorry, I can't help you.
Can I jump in on the previous point? Sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, just quickly. I just want to say to DJ Samuel, it shows this guy's going through a hard time right now. So, guys, please give him a lot of love in the comments. And it shows how, minor in perspective of life, what we're talking about, right? Today is and stuff like that. So, guys, please give him a lot of love in the comments. Sorry, Eugene, go on.
Oh, no, just quickly. I mean, if we're honest, if everybody's honest, right, we know what the problem is and where the problem lies. You cannot tell me that Ange was given a choice. Either you can have Eze or Johnson, or Eze or Odobert. And Ange said, oh, you know what? Eze's not good enough. I want Johnson or Odobert, right? Like, there's no way you'll convince me that happened. So all the people saying, well, Ange wanted X, Y, and Z, I don't believe that's the case. I could be wrong, but I feel like the point of having the director of football at the club is, regardless of the manager, after Ange leaves, the director of football and the recruiting team make the decision, right? The manager gives them the profile of the player that they need. They offer him players, and then ultimately the manager signs up on it. So saying that, Ange is responsible because he signed, he gave a yes to Johnson and others, I agree, sure. But I think it's disingenuous to say Ange actually specifically asked for the kids, and he did not want first-team players. It doesn't make sense where he said he wants to challenge, and then he's like, you know what? I'm only going to buy the kids. I don't want Eze or Nico Williams or whoever else. So I feel like we all know where the issue lies with recruiting and the types of players that we bring in. And again, for every manager, we have the same conversation. For Conte, for Jose, now Ange. So let's be consistent and say, yes, Ange has his faults. Yes, he might have signed off on some players that are not good enough. But the types of players that he was offered, I don't believe were good enough for us to make the jump and to challenge.
Just jump in on this one.
5 cents.
I'll just jump in on this one. 3 things. One, if Eze is so good, why is he still at Crystal Palace? If he is this superstar that, I'm not saying he wouldn't improve.
He's a very good footballer.
Yeah, but nobody else came
good.
for him. There's reasons for that. So Ivan Toney, he's in Saudi Arabia now. Nobody wanted him in the Premiership neither. And do you honestly think if Daniel Levy is only buying players to make money on, that he wouldn't have made money on Eze had he come and performed? Because he would have been worth more than what he was when we bought him, compared to Brennan Johnson, who's worthless now. And 2, how do we know the reasons? We all speculate that it's Daniel Levy wouldn't pay the money, which is probably right. I'm not saying it's not right. But what's to say Ange didn't have a conversation with Eze and then didn't want him? We all sit here and speculate and say, oh, it's Daniel Levy. Definitely it's his fault. It's got to be his fault. But nobody else has bought him neither. This is what I don't understand when we're talking about Eze. And again, I am not saying Eze wouldn't have improved our team, because he would have done. I know that. But there's got to be reasons nobody else wanted him.
I think Eze is just an example, right? Last year, Ange early on said, I need a defender, right? It took forever to get the defender in. Before this year, Ange said, I need 2 attacking players for the first 11. It took us forever to sign Solanke, and we did not bring another starter in, right? So it's not even about Eze per se. It's about having a top player on that right-hand side to complement Solanke and Son.
And this is where I feel
Eze wouldn't have played on the right. Eze would have played left.
Well,
he can't
he
play
can
on
play
the right.
everywhere.
And he could have moved Sonny to the right if need be.
Right.
If I could
again,
just step
Eze
in, though, I do think it is a fair point that Eugene is trying to make. I think there does have to be.
I get it, but I just think that we all sit here and say, oh, well, we should have signed Ivan Toney, we should have signed these. But if they are such good players, why did nobody else want them neither?
No, I hear what you're saying. I think the point is that, in terms of Postecoglou, we know what we needed this summer. It took us so long to get it in, almost just before the start of the season, which now we're paying the price for, because we're having to use the start of the season to get them up to speed in terms of what we're trying to do, fit them into the system, fitness, minutes, etc. like that. But also, when you hear what Postecoglou was saying all last season, wanting a title challenge, he laid it clear all summer long. He laid it clear. And when you look at the summer transfer business we ended up doing in the end, compared to what the narrative was coming out of Postecoglou, for me, it doesn't quite line up. And then lastly, I do think Eugene has a point in terms of the scouting, in terms of the way the transfer is operating now. Postecoglou is almost the last one who has his say on the player. It's almost, the options in that are more or less decided between people, and then it's put to him last. This is the guy we can bring in. Do you want him? Do you not? And if there's no other players lined up, of course the guy's going to say yes. So I think there has to be a bit of understanding around the scouting department, how it operates now. It's more designed that the club say, right, we want to play attacking football. So they then go and find all players that meet the metrics and stuff like that. They buy players in. Like, even you look at likes of Vuskovic and stuff like that, he's probably not going to feature under Ange Postecoglou, but he'll be here for the next manager. And that's the way this sort of scouting network, this scouting department is set up. Am I correct, Eugene? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't even think it's about the transfer fees per se. It's more about the wages, right? If somebody wants a top player would want $250K a week, of course, that's not going to happen here, right? So I think the wages are the biggest issue here. So, and again, whether Ange has enough talent and enough players in the squad to be more successful, definitely, right? We should not be in the form that we're in. But when people expect us to challenge based on what he said, and then you look at the talent that the club consistently brings in, not just under Ange, but overall in general, right? We know where the problem is. So I feel like it's a bit unfair to say, well, Ange brought in Johnson, Ange brought in all the kids, I think, yeah.
I think you're spot on with that part, that the wages sometimes do influence whether we actually sign that player or not. But the argument with that one is then, so if you increase the wages for, say, Eze, and you give him the 250, that player means you've got to up Sons, you've got to up several others. And where do you stop? I mean, a footballer earning £200,000 a week is absolutely effing ridiculous. I mean, fair play to them. If they're going to get paid that, anybody would say yes. But there's got to be a point where we sit down and say this is getting out of hand. I mean, but even 60 grand a week for an average, or for a bottom player, £60,000 a week, when there are people out there struggling to earn minimum wage. It is absolutely, and then to put in some of the performances they do is absolutely criminal. But let's get away from wages.
But I think the counter, I actually want to expand on the point. The counter argument too is, right, if we want to win trophies, then we have to compete with the teams that we are competing with, right? And when you look at the wage to turnover ratio in Tottenham, right, we have 40-50%, whereas I think the maximum allowed is 70 or 80% or something like that. And most of the top clubs actually pay those type of money, right? And I think I know it's ridiculous money, right? But when you look at Arsenal with, I think I've watched that they have 14 players on over 100 and something K, right? And we have 4, for example, right? When you look at City, who pay 400,000 per week for Haaland. I know it's Haaland, right? But you kind of have to, at certain point, unlock the floodgate a bit. That's how I would call it, right? And I'm not saying we should start paying 300k for average donies, right? But I think when you identify a player that you actually want, and he will definitely improve the team, I think it's worth it to even if he wanted to bring in Eze and he demanded 250k, and that meant that we have to put Son on 250k, I still think it's worth it. That's the way I see it, right? But I think it also has to be done in a measured way so that you don't overspend yourself, right? I think Man United have this, or at least had this huge issue of overpaying their players, and they had 5 players on over 300k, and then when you want to get rid of them, it's an issue, right? So I think you have to really carefully balance this, but I think we are a wealthy enough club where we can easily afford to pay more, right? I think it's kind of done by a design from our board, and I think they specifically target players where they don't have to pay as much as the wages as they could, right? I think with the Ivan Toney example, I think I personally think suits perfectly, right? Because it was widely reported that Ivan Toney wanted huge wages, right? 300k, 325k, whatever, right? It was different numbers, but around that, right? But I just think we didn't want to break the wage structure, and I'm not implying that we should, right? But Solanke reportedly is on 100k or 120k or something like that, right? So I think that's why we chosen Solanke, even though we had to pay more for him up front in terms of transfer fee to Bournemouth. I think they just did the maths and thought that paying a player less like Solanke would suit them more. And I honestly think this is one of the issues of this club. I think if you want to sign proven quality, you have to increase the wage bill a bit, right? And that, as I said, there is plenty of space to do so, right? It's not like we are paying 15 players 150k or something, and we cannot increase the wage bill, right? We have plenty of space to do that, and we are one of the best financially run clubs, right? Financially stable, huge incomes, huge that, huge this, huge that, right? So I think there is space. It's just willingness to do so. That's the way I look at it, right?
I get where you're coming from. I just think it's a dangerous precedence to start saying, well, if we go and sign, say, Ivan Toney or Eze, and we give them the 250, 300,000 pound a week, and they're then average, and this is where we get the problem that, like you mentioned, you've then got to get rid of them at the end of it, and when they're on that sort of money, they don't want to move, and you can't move them. And I just think in this day and age that, you know, we've got to stop comparing ourselves to Man City, and because they're just, you know, they're just ridiculous. And you know, like Man United, I mean, what were they paying Jadon Sancho? Wasn't that like 300 grand a week or something daft like that? But you know, these, unless you're signing top players, then I just think when we're talking about 200,000-300,000 pound a week, it's just ridiculous to say, well, just pay it. And then, you know, the next player comes in. Well, if he knows, say, let's say that, you know, Eze was on 300,000 or 250,000, and then we sign somebody else that's not in his level, but a little bit below him. And he knows that that player's on 250,000. So our wage bill's going up. He's then going to come in and say, oh, just add another 20K onto what I would accept. They're all going to ask for that little bit more and a little bit more. And and I get where, you know, us as fans, and like you say, that one or two players isn't harmful to up that wage, but it is. It actually is harmful to up one or two, because everybody else is upped by one or two little bits. And this is the problem that we have, where money in football is ruining the game of football. That's the problem. You know, we all sit here and say football is for the fans. Well, it kind of isn't anymore. It's for the business, because it's all been ruined by money.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more.
I mean, I think there's a perfect example just coming there by Paddy. Timo Werner's supposedly on £165,000 a week to sit on the bench. I mean, yes, I get the arguments behind him, but how ridiculous is that? This is a player that, you know, we've decided, we haven't paid a transfer fee for him, but we'll pay £165,000 a week for him to sit on the bench.
But that's the thing, that we didn't have to give them them wages. We could have given them to someone like Eze, or put them towards someone like Eze, you know.
Yeah.
But look,
you know, the point is we're paying that one player that sort of money, and you know, then we sort of all sit here and say, oh, we're not paying the wages. Well, clearly we do pay the wages. This is the problem. It's just not necessarily on the right players.
Yeah, that's the thing, and I think that's where it becomes a problem. I think, you know, at Tottenham we have a history of giving it to the wrong players. You know, I think, you know, if it's players in and around Tottenham looking for it, I think you can just say to the players, yeah, well, it's justified. They've earned it. You know, you come here, you play well, you learn that sort of wage, no problem. I think there is a way of going about it and being smart about it. But look, let's wait and see. What I will say is we have dramatically reduced the wage bill with a lot of the high wages we got off, which means come January, come summer, there is that opportunity, there is that scope that we maybe didn't once have to be able to offer them sort of wages. But look, let's wait and see what happens. I've got 2 super chats, so take these, and then I need to give NordVPN a plug, because they're here to help you and save money. And then we're going to kick on and talk about team selection. That's what we're all here for. Joseph says, big up all, we could still be playing the North London Derby and still won't score. Need changes tonight, i.e. rather see more than BJ or Timo Werner. You said it, Dave. Give the young players a chance to at least buy himself time. And do you know what? There's 2 reasons why I say that. One, when Pochettino was hitting the same sort of stumbling block at Tottenham Hotspur, he turned to the academy. He wasn't afraid to give them their opportunities. He turned to players that Tottenham had loaned out in years gone by. He wasn't afraid to give them the opportunities. And I also think it bought him a little bit of leeway with the fans, because every club loves to see a couple of academy players coming through. Every fan absolutely loves to see it. So I do think it buys him a bit of time. Second of all, you take yourself back to pre-season. I was going mad about the starting 11 and lack of effort and stuff they were showing in games. My biggest praise was towards the likes of Mikey Moore, who's proactive, 2 goals pre-season, driving at the opposition, you know, a couple of assists. Towards the likes of Bergvall, getting on the ball, driving us forward. And one thing I like, even if it was a deep position, picking it up moving it forward, getting up, supporting play. In an attacking position, unlocking the door. Absolutely brilliant. Jed Spence, the impact that guy had down the right-hand side. You know, they were some of my biggest talking points from preseason, and that was players that where a lot of talk was about coming out of preseason, where a lot of the excitement was around. And I just feel like Postecoglou on that, Joseph, will be doing himself a favor, my man. Big yourself up. Jack, anything you want to say to him?
No, I've said that before as well, where, you know, when the players are letting you down or just not even performing to basic standard levels, and I think a lot of them are, from Timo Werner to Brennan Johnson to even James Maddison in games, also other players in the midfield included. Kulusevski had some stinkers. Everyone's had stinkers under Ange Postecoglou, and he would actually buy himself, I think, some faith back from the fan base if he did just try different players. And some of these guys I do rate. You know, Bergvall, I think, is a clever player. He looks to be actual Premier League quality, despite, you know, him having very little experience at this level. Same thing with Mikey Moore. He looks to be top quality for his age. And what we need basically is people who can make good decisions in the final third. We're asking for basically the bare minimum at this point. We lost our minds over Odebear for his first game because he actually takes on his fullback. Like, the standards are very low right now for what we want from our players in the forward line. And I think if we just tried different players, gave other people opportunities instead of continuing to roll out the same players week in, week out, I think Ange would buy himself a lot of time back from the fan base and as well as just from the club in general, instead of just persisting with the same crew of players that have just been letting him down for weeks on end and practically almost 30 games now at this point. So I completely agree with Joseph here. Completely agree.
Big up, Joseph, and really appreciate the support, my man. Absolute legend. Where are you watching the game from? Do let me know in the chat. We've got Donovan Oosterreicher with a super sticker. Jack, do you know what the super sticker is?
You put in a weight room emoji, so hopefully we could show Coventry City the weight room where we might need you in the team. Donovan Oosterreicher, he's
showing them the
fittest man in the flat cap army. Donovan is. He's an absolute beast. You can tell he's climbing up. He's running up mountains, Dave. He's not even walking up them. He's running up mountains. He's an absolute legend, and big up to you, Donovan.
Fair play, Donovan. The weight room, that's Mikey Moore. Remember, he's squaring up to the Bayern Munich player. You know, Bergvall bouncing off a few guys in preseason. They're well able to hand themselves. Donovan Oosterreicher, just like yourself, my man. Big up Sava as well with the super chat. Really appreciate the support, brother. Got to run, but just showing support, Dave. You know my feelings. If this form was any other club, we would laugh and ridicule their manager because it's ours. We find a million excuses. He is crap. Do you know what makes me chuckle? Because to a degree, there is a bit of truth in that, you know, if any, like Ten Hag was going through something similar for a while and that, you know, and I would, every Spurs fan would, we'd all have a little bit of a chuckle and a giggle and stuff like that. But, you know, we all had a chuckle and giggle at Pochettino last season at Chelsea. He eventually got it right, but he walked because there was a split in the ownership on keeping him around. But, you know, he did eventually get it right. And I know Postecoglou's been in the job a bit longer and stuff like that, so I absolutely get it. But you'd also agree that we can't keep hiring and firing managers either. At some point, some guy does have to, you know, be given a chance to build it. Does have to be given at least 2 seasons to try and get it right. You know, like Thomas Frank. If Thomas Frank come in, I think you would agree. If it was him, you'd like him to give 2 seasons, get it right, you know, and give him a chance regardless of sort of what's going on and stuff like that. But look, I know how you feel about Postecoglou. After every game, you text me. I ignored you after the North London Derby. I'm not going to lie. I turned off my phone and I went straight to bed. I couldn't speak about it, to be brutally honest. I was absolutely gutted. But big up, Savin. Guys, do get over there and check out his channel, Football Heritage TV. Really appreciate the support. But like I said, there is a degree of truth in what he says there. I'll be the first one to laugh and ridicule them. But when it's Tottenham, I like to think I come to a bit more of a level head, Sava. And then we've got Sebas Wolf, member for 18 months. I guess he doesn't want his eyebrows here, guys. But he says, if we don't win today, I'll shave my eyebrows. I mean, I wouldn't even tempt fate, to be brutally honest. That's like
a mistake.
Yeah, huge mistake. That's like me saying, you know, if we don't win today, you can have my Big Mac. I mean, huge mistake, lad. Absolutely huge.
Just go for the Phil Foden, Sebas. Just do like a couple of those dashes, you know, through one of your eyebrows. Don't go all the way, man. Don't go all the way. Also, because if you shave your eyebrows, I think it will make it a lot harder to close your eyes, which you probably want to do whenever you're watching Spurs. So you should probably keep them on so that when you do close your eyes, it makes it at least a little bit less painful.
Member for 18 months as well. Really appreciate the support, brother. Big yourself up. But guys, we are going to take a moment because this stream is brought to you by NordVPN, of course, sponsoring us all month, the fastest VPN on the internet. And basically, they're here to help you guys save money. and how you can save money in a number of ways. You can basically change your location if you're traveling to get the cheapest flights, cheapest hotels, and everything else for you guys. But most importantly, we're all football fans, we're all football lovers, and sometimes we get charged absolute extortionate prices for our sports packages. Well, I can just put myself into Seattle. I could become Jack's next door neighbor. Not quite sure how he feels about that. You know, it might be a bit of a stepbrothers thing going on there. But technically, I can be Jack's next door neighbor, and then I can get the same service he gets at a much cheaper price than what I'm paying. And I don't even get everything because there's such things that exist in the world, like 3 p.m. blackouts and stuff like that. Whereas I'm sitting there at a 3 p.m. blackout going, hang on, Jack, how are you getting the game over there in the USA? So it helps me out in those situations, like cup games tonight as well and stuff like that. It's also good for the whole family, guys. You can have it for up to 10 devices, which is absolutely brilliant. 1 VPN, 10 devices, absolutely brilliant. And where it's really great for the streaming services, actually, because I know a lot of people use Altiera streaming services. I know a lot of you would suffer from a bit of buffering in streams. That's where NordVPN is absolutely brilliant. Gets rid of that altogether. My dad's tried it. It's trusted and it's tested, guys. So make sure you get on that. And also, everything, your details, the whole lot are secure as well with their security features, making sure that you can put them in there carefree, knowing that it is safe and secure. Jack, have I missed anything?
I was only going to add, it's actually made my life as sort of this content creation business a lot easier. From Twitter Reacts, all the time when we're doing those, Dave, when we're looking at highlights from the game, it's actually banned a lot of times in the US. Switch over to the London, stream, or to the London location. Then I can actually watch back some of the Paddy Power memes or watch back some of the highlights. Also, technically, when I have traveled to the UK for some reason or another, the Americans, the Yanks over here, have much better highlight packages. You can actually watch like a whole 20-minute highlight package of like Real Madrid, Stuttgart, over here. So you can switch over to the USA. Just make your life, as a football fan, a lot easier, from various better highlight packages to saving money on streaming services to being able to actually watch, a little clip on Twitter that everyone else is able to watch in one country. And then for some reason in another country, it's banned. So it's just made my life in terms of football, consuming so much easier and a lot more peace of mind as well. So that's what I can add to it. It's just made my life a lot easier. And so please check it out. It's at the top of the description, and it's also pinned in the chat as well.
Yeah, pinned in the chat, in the description of the video. Check it out and get the best package that suits all of your needs, guys. But really appreciate that. So from NordVPN, thank you very much for helping us out this month. And then we've got Sebas Wolf 28 has gifted out 5 Irish Hotspur memberships. Yep. Jack, do you know who they've gone to?
Big up to Sebas, by the way. Really good guy. I know him in person. He's a lovely person, and really appreciate him actually gifting these out. He's a top guy, and he's giving it out to Rav D, Akdan Hanif, great name, by the way, Jamie Allen, great name, Fiona, and then Clayton NTX as well. All gifted memberships by the one and only Sebas Wolf. Big up to Sebas. Hopefully you're keeping well, and the eyebrows are still intact, sir.
I wonder if my sister, her name's Fiona, I wonder if she's the recipient of one of them. But big out, Sebas, well, very, very generous, my man. And people, make sure you use the best, use them memberships, because we do a lot for our members. So make sure you get on that. But guys, let's move forward. Let's get back straight into it. I'm going to throw a question out there. My missus just came in. Just have to have a quick word, about the dinner. Get that situation sorted out for after the game. See what she's cooking me. And then I will be straight back, guys. But for Ange Postecoglou, picking a team for tonight's Carabao Cup third round tie against Coventry is a balancing act. He can ill afford to misjudge. How strong a side do you think Spurs will field against Coventry tonight? And we'll start with you, Soren, because the EFL Cup games and FA Cup games early rounds, generally in my lifetime, is where the supporters usually get to see the young and promising players who generally don't get to experience too much senior football, across the course of the Premier League. And managers sort of use that game to get them guys in that sort of environment and see if he can maybe gain a bit of confidence from them. So what sort of side do you think we'll see today? You're on mute, Soren.
Mute.
It's this amateur hour, lad.
Bloody hell. Most people would say I'm probably better on mute anyway. I worry about tonight's game because for the team lineup, because I don't think Ange can win. And I don't mean the game. I mean, if we play a full team and go out, he's going to get slated. If we play the kids and go out, he's going to get slated. If we play, if we change a load of players that really need to come in like we did last year, then we're all going to slate him. And
Yeah.
it's just one of those. I mean, to me, you kind of look at it and think he's got to play the strongest team possible. But then the argument has got to be, well, we need to play some of the kids because we've got to bed them in. And for me, I would like to see Archie Graham because we know he's played against Coventry. He knows that team. He's from that league. And Bergvall, why not chance him? But then the worry is, well, if they get overrun, we're gonna absolutely slate everybody, and the kids will lose faith. But when you look at those pre-season games, when the kids came on, the energy went up, and we actually looked a lot better. So to me, we need to get that fine line. I think there's got to be a backbone of what would be our first 11, but we have to get one or two of these kids in as well.
Yeah.
And I just don't really know. For me, I think we've got to play a strong defense. I do think we probably, and this kind of contradicts that, but I kind of think we do need to rest Romero. So we've got to bring Dragusin in. Do we risk Van der Ven? To me, we kind of need to drop him. And I know this is going to go against a lot of opinions, but I would play Davis. But I would also try and bring that back line back a bit. But we know it's not going to, so Davis doesn't fit the system. Udoji's got to play. I think we've got to play him into fitness because he's not fit. I would play Maddison. I would start Maddison. And I would probably start. Can Bentancur still play tonight?
I think he should be able to, yeah.
So I would play Bentancur. I would rest Kulu. And this is going to be probably pretty unpopular. Werner on the left and Odegaard on the right with Solanke down the middle. Because we've got to do it something like that. I mean, I think we've got to give Son a rest. We can't keep playing him. He's not playing great, so we've got to drop him. Kulu, as much as I would want to start him, I think he also needs a bit of a rest because he's got some big games coming up. And I would play Jed Spence right back and give Porro a rest. I think, that's the way I would go. That you've got Maddison in there, you've got Bentancur, you've got Dragusin, which, he's basically a first-team player. You've obviously got Vicario in goals. You've got Solanke. We've got to play Solanke up front because he needs to get fit. And as much as Werner isn't probably the right answer, but he's also that experienced player. So you put him on the left and Odegaard on the right.
I mean, Eugene, he got slated last year, Ange Postecoglou, for the team that he put out against Fulham. I would argue that he needed to make changes. I mean, he was figuring out who he could trust in the squad. He was giving everybody their fair chance, and it kind of turned back against him where the fan base really called out Ange for, not pushing for a trophy, not being able to put out as strong a squad as possible. Do you agree with Soren? It's kind of a lose-lose for him. Like, he needs to give other people a chance, but if he does do that and we don't get over the line, then he'll get slated for it. If he continues with the same starting lineup, he might get slated for that as well.
No, actually, I do agree. I think the only way Ange gets his flowers is if he starts the kids and we win, right? So, I mean, personally, it goes back to us not bringing in cover for Udogie. So now we're kind of stuck, right? Udogie might need rest, but we don't have anybody to play, on that side. So I agree with Soren somewhat, except I would, in the midfield, I would go Archie Gray, Sarr, and Bergvall. In the midfield, on the wings, I would go Wilson and Mikey Moore. I don't think Moore will start, so probably we'll see, I'd want to see Johnson and Wilson because Johnson needs to work on his form and play Solanke. And in the back, probably be Dragusin. I would probably play Spence, Dragusin, Davis, and Destiny.
Tell you what, Eugene, that midfield is a brave one. That midfield is a
no, it is.
If it does go wrong, There is no leader in there whatsoever. But I would love to see that. I would love to see that midfield.
Well, we don't have leaders as is. Like Madison,
Well,
I don't want to see
but
Madison. I'd make him run
yeah.
laps. I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
just run laps, run 5 miles outside. I don't want to see
Yeah.
Madison. I'm so sick of the way he plays. But I mean,
I think Madison would.
that
I think Madison would have a good game tonight, though, because I think he'll have a bit more time.
he would. It's a principle for me, though. It's
Yeah.
just the way. Like, if it'd be up to me, I would play kids in the league and play the strongest lineup in the cups. But obviously, that's not going to happen. So, like, Romero is tired. You can see that. Mickey is a risk. I would rest him. And I do want to see Bergvall and Gray. And the way our midfield performed on the weekend, Kulu and Bentancur and Madison, I would sit them and I would let the kids play. So that's what I would.
I agree with you, Eugene, that actually the way he does win over everyone is he plays the kids and then he wins convincingly as well. But, that's not easy.
That's the only way.
Michael, I mean, to you on this, and then we'll get to Donovan here. Thanks so much for the support, Donovan. Michael, remember last year he got slated for the team that he put out against Fulham? I mean, how does Ange win over the fan base? What does he need to do in order to not put even more pressure on himself?
In my opinion, rightfully so, by the way, last year. I think rotating 10 players, especially, your third game in a club, I mean, third professional game in a club, it was a huge risk and he paid the price for it, right? But I think what I would want to see today is key players rotated. I'm especially talking about Romero and Van de Ven. And I know it's not the most exciting prospect, but I would actually play Dragusin and Davies as a center back duo. And the reason is because, one, as you guys already mentioned, I think Romero is really tired and a break would really suit him. And two, Van de Ven, I just think he's too precious for us to play in a game against Coventry. I just don't want to see him getting an injury in a Carabao Cup game. And I know it's kind of like a counter argument to what I was saying, that this game is more important to me than the Arsenal game. But I have a feeling that we will have enough quality in other areas of the pitch so that this one rotation won't necessarily kill us, right? I definitely think we will see Spence playing today. I think we will see Bergvall playing today. In my opinion, I think Maddison will get rested. And I think we'll see Gray playing today, but I'm not sure if it's going to be in the midfield.
No.
I actually have a sneaky suspicion it will be as a right back. And Spence will be the rotation for Udogi on the left. That's at least I think what we will see today. And my one last wish is to see Mikey Moore play today. I'm not sure if he will start, but he was omitted from yesterday's under-21s match. He wasn't even in the squad, right? So for me, it clearly points to him being included in the squad against Coventry, right? I just hope this will be like he will get a meaningful opportunity, right? Because I don't want Ange to basically chicken out of playing him if we are 1-1 or it's only 1-0. I actually want to see this kid tested in a proper environment, not only in a preseason game, right, against a Korean All-Stars team or whatever, right? So that's the way I see it, and I think Solanke will play. Solanke needs to get back to fitness, and I honestly think he will play Werner on the left, but I'm not looking forward to that. I'm going to be honest.
I think you guys covered it. I think Eugene made the best point that actually Ange probably saves himself by getting a convincing win, because we all do need a convincing win, but he probably should do that while also giving guys that haven't been given a chance at all this year, like Bergvall, more, some minutes as well, which is tough to do as a manager, but that's what he finds himself in. Actually, I'd argue that he's in a tougher situation now with this League Cup than he was in the Fulham one. I think the Fulham one, he actually wasn't as under pressure. He just made the 10 changes and people were upset, kind of with the benefit of hindsight. Like if he won that game, then I don't think anybody would have really cared that he made the 10 changes. They probably would have supported him for it. But the fact that he didn't get over the line against Fulham, then kind of meant with, our Captain Hindsight hats on, we could, slate him for it. Whereas this time, I don't think there is as much hindsight that's going to be necessary. I think a lot of people have certain expectations of what the lineup should look like and also what the performance needs to look like as well because of, the context of everything that's happened so far this season.
I think. Oh, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, you can look at it this way and say, if he plays the kids, in theory, they should be fearless. And can you imagine if they go and win? What happens then in the Prem? Do we play the kids instead of the starting 11, which a lot of us have been, shouting for? And the kids that we're talking about, they are, they're going to be special players. That they're not just kids that you're going to throw in for the sake of it. That they are probably the future of Tottenham Hotspur.
And it's not only that, but they're technically gifted, which makes them, it helps it easier for them to settle into these sort of environments, these sort of games. And look, what I think they would bring to the lineup is that what we're missing right now. Right now I think we got a lot of players just sort of going through the motions, wishing and hoping that things go their way without really trying. I think with the youngsters, they'll have a point to prove. They'll come in, they'll bring that energy, they'll bring that freshness, they'll probably bring a little bit more directness with them, probably quicken up our play a little. That's one thing I noticed in preseason. When they were out there, our play was a lot more quick and a lot more devastating than when the first 11 played it. So I think there's a lot of benefits to actually doing this today. And look, I think it was RST, I could be completely wrong, but someone put in a comment basically saying, Ange is damned if he does and damned if he doesn't today. If he does pick the youngsters, people will go, he should have went full squad, full strength, no more under pressure. And people like me, if he goes full squad and they let him down, I'd say, but I could see him sleepwalk. I could see us walking into this. He should have made the changes. So I think he's in a bit of a precarious position. I think a win is the only thing that will get him out of it. But what I would say is, I think from a fan's perspective, I think because of the hurt we've suffered in cups in years gone by, we now just want managers to go full strength, get through the cup games and stuff like that. But I think we neglect that it's a long season. We have a squad of 24, 25 players for a reason, and it has to be utilized over the course of the season. Heading into Europa Conference League, he'll have to make changes. We've got 7 games in 21 days. We're on a run of 7 games in 21 days. There's going to have to be rotation. We can't keep putting out the first 11 because that's where the injuries start piling up. That's where the problems start happening and stuff like that. We need to start managing some of these guys' minutes. Adoji, not 100% fully fit yet after him coming back. There's no way he should be starting today. Should have enough cover to be able to step in there and handle that. Van de Ven only coming back from injury. Probably will start tonight, but I think, I think he should be rested. Romero, his biggest problem is he needs a rest. He hasn't had a rest like everybody else. He's gone deep in both international competitions over the last couple of years, where others have come back early, others haven't gone. He needs a rest. He doesn't need to be playing tonight. Pedro Porro, one of our most selected players under Ange Postecoglou, again, needs a rest. And I still think you could put some good players out there to mix in with it, like a Bentancur, like a Papa Matasar, to mix in there. It doesn't have to be all, completely young. But like I said, I think he would do himself a lot of justice. I think if he rolls out the same 11 again, I'd question how many of them would actually want to be out there. I think you'd get a slow, lethargic performance yet again. And I think, the definition of insanity is picking the same guys, expecting different results. I think he has to make them changes. It was the bright spark in preseason, and I think that's our biggest problem. Like I said earlier on, the only player that's come into that lineup from the signings we've made this season has been Solanke. But the creativity was a big problem last season. If you're not going to put in some of the players that we've signed to try and, get that going again, then he's only going to set himself up for failure by drawing out the big 11. And then plus, last thing I will say, you play your best team tonight, you bet your bottom dollar. Come business end of the season when wherever you're fighting in the league, whatever it's your Europa Conference League, Europa League, Champions League, you're going to take a hit on it later on in the season when your players are gassed. If you get deep in the FA Cup or deep in Europe, you're going to take a hit on it when your players are gassed. So Postecoglou, I think, from fans' point of view, have to have an understanding that he has to have an overall picture and he has to manage that squad. And we should expect rotations in these games. When I was growing up, I remember we went to Shamrock Rovers. We were playing the likes of Harry Kane, who no one ever heard of, scored his first Tottenham goal, beat them easy. We went to Hearts in the UEFA Cup. We beat them 5-0 with under-21s and our fringe players. And I could pull out countless of cup games where we've done that. And it's about time Tottenham got themselves back into that position. Man United, funny enough, made 9 changes to their starting lineup last night from the one on Sunday and went and won 7-0. Why can't we?
Yeah. And also, like, if I can add, right, Coventry, like, speaking a bit about our opposition, actually, right, Coventry are, I would call them like a top half championship side, right? And I think plenty of times we've seen, like, not only our club, but different clubs loaning young players to championship, right? And it's a bit of a sink or swim test for those players, right? If you actually shine while being like 19 or 20 in the championship, that's a good indicative of you being a player with a potential to be a Premier League player, right? So when we are facing the opposition of such level, right, a top half championship team, I think if you throw Gray, like, Bergvall and all those other guys more, when you throw them into a game like this, I think it's really a good test for them. I think it will be a good test for us as a fan base to see how good they actually are. So yeah, I definitely want to see some kids play today, but I'm also in a back where I don't think we should make like 11 changes to the starting lineup. I think it should be a healthy balance between some of the starters who need minutes, who need to warm themselves up, but also some kids who will come in place for some of the starting 11 players that definitely need a rest or don't need to play in this type of game, right? Because let's be honest, if we were facing even if we were facing like Crystal Palace away, right, then I would make a case that we should probably play with a stronger 11, right? Not necessarily full starting 11, but I would be like, yeah, maybe play Bergvall and someone else, but the 9 players should be the starting 11 players, right? But this is a championship side, so I think we should, I'm not saying it will be comfortable, but I think we should be able to rotate with a couple of youngsters and still find ourselves coming out victorious, right? That's in theory, how Spurs do in those type of situations, but that's a different discussion, right?
The only thing I see is, when we're going away to a Coventry team on a Wednesday night and it's starting to get a bit cooler, those kids, to me, as much as I don't advocate putting all the kids in, they're going to be the ones that are a little bit more, because they've got more to prove tonight. They've got to come in and show that they can live at this level. And let's not, where Dave says don't play Udogie because I think we have to play him. And I think this is where somebody like a Gray or a Bergvall and a Odebear and maybe even a Johnson, this is the level that they should be coming to prove that they can play at for a start. And they're going to want to come in and play far more than those first teams probably are tonight. And that's why the balance has got to be right. There's got to be enough what would be first teamers with some kids. Let them start, but have, for me, Sonny has to be on the bench and Kulu has to be on the bench. These are the players that, if it is going wrong, we need to be able to bring them on. We say about going to Shamrock. I remember going to bloody Grimsby on a cold evening in the FA Cup, and we had a strong team out, Sheringham and all them lot, and we lost 1-0. And they scored in like the 88th minute or whatever it was. And it was just, you couldn't even see the bloody goal at the other side of the pitch because of the pitch is like a curve. And this is the sort of night like that where it's not always the best idea to put all the first teams out because they're not as up for it as the youngsters will be. And look, it's like we said at the beginning of the chat about this, he can't win. If he puts the kids out and loses, he's going to get slated. If it's the first team, they're going to get slated. So you kind of look at it and think, well, if we're going to get slated one way or another, we might as well get slated for playing the kids.
Fair. That's absolutely fair. Donovan Oosterreicher with the super sticker. Big yourself up, my man. Really appreciate support. Jack, do we know what it is?
He's thrown in a burger emoji, which is very tempting if we get a win tonight. Maybe instead of the tacos, Dave, you could throw in a burger as well. You can combine the two. Have a very American meal, tacos and burgers.
I don't think I could do both. If I don't eat the tacos, I'll never get them again, and I don't want that. So I'm better off just acquiescing tonight, and just eating them, to be brutally honest. But you know, she does have chicken burgers in the freezer for another day this week, so I am sorted in that regard. And then we've got THFC Till I Die with the super sticker as well. What's the Tron doing?
He's just saying hello to the panel. Normally on the panel, but Dermatron taking a week off because he deserves it. I think taking his mind and his heart away from, well, his heart's always with Spurs, but he probably needs his mind to take a break from Spurs for a little bit, as we all do. And he's just saying hello. Big up to Dermatron. Hopefully you're all right, my friend.
Big up
I
the
would
Tron.
say,
Really
I would
good.
say we've got rid of the olders and brought in the youngsters, but obviously that doesn't include me.
Yeah, the second team is here. The backup, sir. The show.
Well, we need a performance tonight, boys. So, you know, we'll do whatever it takes. Big up Dermatron, though.
No, big up Dermatron, and hopefully you enjoy your night away with the missus. Hopefully you, you know, keep it all PG and that, Dermo. Big yourself up. But guys, moving into centre backs, I want to have a little bit of a conversation around Radu Dragusin, because we're all expecting him to start tonight. And if he does start tonight and keeps a clean sheet, some would argue he should probably, you know, go in and start again against Brentford and drop Romero. But what I want to know of you guys, we've seen him play a few times. What does he need to do in order to cement himself in that starting back four? Because I look at him, I think he's a very good player. I think he's tidy. I think defensively he can be really good. I think there's a lot more to come from him. But on the ball, I find him a little bit shaky. And that's probably why I think he's not really close to breaking the Romero-Van de Ven partnership up. So I want to know if you guys, what does he have to do to break that partnership up?
Kick Romero on the training field.
Injure him.
That's the only way he's going to start over Romero, other than games like tonight. Look, I think...
Would that mean that Ange is too loyal, though? Because Romero's basically single-handedly responsible for almost every goal that we've conceded, no matter how good a guy is by his reputation. Yeah. Like, he has to be shown that, you know, if you make mistakes, you know, someone will come out and, you know, take your spot from you, at least for a little bit. And Dragusin, you'd argue, is good enough to fill in for a few games until Christian Romero, you know, takes the spot back away from him.
I agree with you there. I just think, you know, it's a funny one, because we looked at Romero last season and, you know, I know there were people said he wasn't great, and some people were saying he was our best defender. And, you know, he was, a lot of people were voting for him as one of the best players of the season. And then this season, yeah, he's had a few lapses and he's not been great. But for me, he's still my first choice on that paper, along with Van de Ven.
I would apply like the same logic, though, to, and this is harsh to do this to Romero, but so many times where Jose and Conte, they just persisted with guys like Sanchez, guys like Eric Dyer, when I felt like they just needed to go with something else. And it's something, I know the quality is so different, but Romero has made 4 or 5 mistakes that have led to goals conceded, like Sanchez and like Dyer would, and they never were dropped. And that's what was my biggest frustration with Jose and Conte in the past, was for some reason they were just way too loyal to those guys, even though they were just basically killing them in the defense. And so he needs to, in a way, give Romero a bit of a reality check, give him a rest, take him out of the firing line, take him away from the pressure, and give someone who is adequate, who is good, in Dragusin, who's actually a better backup than we've ever had in years gone by, to be honest. Like, he's probably the best backup center back we've had in years. So he needs to give him that chance. And I mean, what is Radu supposed to do when Romero makes mistakes? This is when you get your chance, is when someone makes mistakes, you get to come in and see if you can do better. And this is his chance.
Fully agree with you. I mean, tonight, I think it'll be more against Ange if Romero plays tonight. And I think that's where, you know, the criticism would have to come in. If he starts Romero and Van de Ven tonight, then that's where I mean, look, if we win, we're not gonna, but that's where you've got to start questioning, well, what's the point in having these players as backups if we're not going to play them? Tonight is the night you bring Radu Dragusin in. And look, if he has an absolute blinder of a game, the argument is, how do you drop him? You know, I mean, and I get that, you know, you look at it and think, well, yeah, you know, maybe the weekend we do play him again. But to me, you know, I think it's very hard to sit there and say we don't put Kuti in as a first choice defender on a normal game day. Tonight is a totally different, you know, he has to be dropped tonight. He has to be.
Yep. Unfortunately, Kuti is, you know, the vice captain, the leadership, committee, all that stuff, the World Cup winner. So in theory, Jack, I agree with you. He should be dropped for poor performances, but just given his status on the team, there is no way he'll be dropped. So that's my feeling.
I actually think that if Romero was playing up to the standards we know he can, I don't think Radu could dispossess him of the starting place, right? But I think on the current form that Romero is in, and I'm not only speaking about the mistakes he made for the goals. I actually think on the ball he's really slow. I just don't think he plays with that sharpness that we usually see from him. So I think purely based on performances, he should be dropped, or at least there should be a consideration of dropping him against Brentford, right? And I'm talking about Brentford because I think today I will actually be a bit pissed off if Radu Dragusin doesn't play. Because why did we bring him in for the money we did to not start him in a cup game, right? I think this is a perfect opportunity to see him from the start, and I would actually. I know I would rather see Davies to give Van de Ven a rest, but I am actually kind of excited to see Radu Dragusin and Mickey Van de Ven as a partnership duo. I would like to see it at a certain point, right? So I think that's the way I look at the center back conundrum, right? That we have. And actually, boys, I have to say I've been really thinking about it, right? And our squad is not suitable to it, but I think the starting 11 is really suitable to a three at the back system, which really pisses. The more I think about it, the more I see it, right?
I think personnel-wise, Michael, but technically we don't have that many center backs, so we can't actually play three in the back that consistently.
That's why I said, right? I think the starting 11 is suited to that, but I don't think the squad is, right? I think if we, at the beginning of the window, thought about changing to a three at the back and brought another center back in, then I think a three at the back system would suit us more, right? But I think and then in that case, Radu Dragusin would have a spot in the starting 11, right? But I digress, right? I think Radu definitely for me has to start today, and I think I would consider starting him against Brentford, especially if he performs well today. Especially,
I think he played well against Newcastle, and then he ended up being dropped. Maybe because the players ahead of him are, in my opinion, I think Mickey Van de Ven is one day going to be a world-class player. I'm huge fan of Romero. You can even see I bought his kit before he even switched to the number 17. I believed in him for that long. But when you make mistakes like he has, I do think you have to give your chance to the other player. And Radu Dragusin, you have to rate his mentality because he came to Spurs knowing that there is Romero and Mickey Van de Ven ahead of him. And that's a very hard partnership to try to break up and try to get minutes ahead of. And this is your chance. This is when you get your moment, when someone isn't playing well, when they're technically out of form, the team is out of form, and this is your opportunity. Whether he's better than Romero or not is not really up for debate, but he does deserve a chance now. Because if he doesn't get that chance, then I question Ange Postecoglou's loyalty then to certain players. Like, you can't show that much loyalty to guys that are technically not playing very well at the moment. And I would say the same thing with guys like Brendan Johnson, Timo Werner, and, throughout the whole team, players that have, technically been letting him down. He needs to give other players then a chance, even if he doesn't believe in them as much. I think that just comes with being a Premier League manager. They have to make those hard decisions. You can't just stick with the same old, and expect different results. You got to give other people a chance here. If he does play really well, though, guys, Dragusin, do you agree with Michael that he should then play against Brentford?
He should, but I think there are two players in our squad that will never be dropped. It's Romero and Son. Even though with Son, same thing. If his performances aren't there, I would like to see somebody else given a chance. But I feel like Son and Romero in league games are not going to be dropped, regardless of performances, unfortunately.
What we've got to look at is the next three games. We've got tonight, Coventry. We've got the weekend, and then we've got a cup game next week, I believe. So, if we stay out of those three games, you drop Kuti and Van de Ven tonight, and then they come back in on Saturday, and then you drop them again next week. So, that's the way. If you think about it that way, that if Dragusin plays the side of Davis tonight and they play well, then they play again in the European Cup, the same defence. And that way you're then getting that little bit of cohesion. the perfect game in a sense tonight would be possibly Dragusin, Van der Ven, and Davies in a back three. But we know it's not going to happen. So, you look at it that way and think, well, that would be a very nice thing, because you've then got Van der Ven covering Davies's lack of speed, but you've still got that third defender in there. But we know it's not going to happen. So, over the next 3 games, there's a chance for Kuti and Van der Ven to be dropped twice.
Yeah. I'd argue, though, that technically with, Dragusin playing next to someone like a Ben Davies, it actually presents an even harder challenge, for him. And so if he does end up playing well tonight, that would be my logic to then allow him to play alongside of Van de Ven in the next game, because I think playing with Davies, at least in my opinion, is already a challenge in itself. That's just, clearly how much I rate him at this moment in time. I just think he's been here way too long. I think he doesn't also play the way that Ange needs to, because times when we're trying to hold the high line, Davies sometimes get caught trying to cheat and basically track back so that he doesn't get beaten behind. Dragusin tries his best to hold the line, as do plenty of the other players in that back line, but I feel like Davies isn't fully accountable in that regard. So if he has a good game tonight, Dragusin, then I think he should be rewarded with, even more minutes, because he only gets so many chances as it is. It just feels harsh to then, drop him to the bench and kind of treat him on the same level that Ben Davies is, which is basically a glorified backup center back. I think Dragusin should be treated as more than that if he actually has good games and is playing well. Whereas Davies, I think, realizes he is a backup center back. I don't think he has any, hopes or aspirations of displacing Van de Ven. But I think with Dragusin, I think Dragusin rates himself. I think he does think he could, play ahead of Romero if a chance arises, which I think this chance is,
I mean, the other option, Jack, is that maybe Van de Ven and Dragusin do play and Davies plays left back, but more defensive than than the sort of inverted style that Udogie plays. So, and then that does give Udogie that rest maybe. And then we see Van der Ven and Dragusin, which, it's still a strong back four then if you've got Spence hopefully on the right.
Yeah, for the chat, I don't think anybody wants to see Davies play. We just have nobody else. So nobody's pushing and saying, hey, I want to see Davies. It's like, even with Davies, we still don't have cover for left back. So either he covers left back or he covers left center back. We're one person short at the moment. So it's
just a question on that, and then we're going to get to Thomas here. But I did have a question related to this. Isn't that again a reflection, though, of one of the huge failings of this last transfer window? Is that we didn't bring in a left back or a left-sided center back, because we would be helping ourselves out in this situation. We wouldn't have to consider playing Ben Davies, or we wouldn't have to consider playing Jed Spence over on the left side, which is technically uncomfortable for him. It's such a reflection of the failed window that we didn't bring in a left back or a left-sided center back.
I can actually see Archie Gray on the right, maybe, and Spence on the left. So
I think with the center back thing, right? And it's coupled with the comments from Ange and me watching the guy, right? Luka Vuskovic, the guy we have currently on loan in Belgium, right? He, even though he's right-footed, he mainly plays on the left of the center back pairing, right? And I just have a sneaky feeling they kind of didn't want to bring in a left-sided center back because they don't want to block the path, right? And this was a phrase used by Ange himself, right? But I'm not sure if that's a wise thing to do, in my opinion. And I think there are some ways you could just walk around that problem. Because if you plan on bringing in Vuskovic in a year, then you could, for example, loan someone for a year, a left-sided left-footer, right, who is of a better quality than Davies. And there have been plenty of left-footed centre backs moving, even on the free, right? Like I think a guy called Hermoso left Atletico Madrid on the free. He's like a 31-year-old left-sided centre back who is way better than Ben Davies, right? You could sign him on the 2-year contract, for example, or do something like that, right? So I think there are ways to not block Vuskovic's path, but also like secure this season defensively, right? Because again, I said myself that I think Davies will play, but I don't want to see him play, right? That's the thing, right? It's not that I'm looking forward to it. I just think with the state of the squad, this current squad, I think you have to give Davies some minutes, right? So he has at least some match sharpness. And I think this is the opportunity that Ange will use to give Ben Davies a run out, right? Yeah. And let's just hope that this is Ben Davies. We sometimes call him a steady Eddie, right? And he's never great, but rarely he's like awful. So I hope that we today's like dice roll lands on a 6 out of 10 Ben Davies performance, right? Which is nothing special, but nothing bad either, right? Because I think that's what we need from him in the back. I don't think he needs to, like, be a monster in that backline, but I don't think he but I hope he doesn't fail us today.
We need a vanilla ice cream Ben Davies performance.
Exactly.
Today, just standard, steady, and
so playing a high line.
Done.
Just a quick question with Davis. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just a quick question to the panel. Obviously, there's a few people in the chat talking about it. Would we rather see Gray at right back or Spence? I mean, for me, Spence has got to start. He's got to.
Yeah, I think we're going to see Gray probably at right back and then Spence at left back. I think that's what Ange we saw experiment with in the preseason.
For me, Spence has got to start at right back and Gray's got to play in midfield as that holding midfielder, which is his position.
So then you play Udogie, you continue to play Udogie?
Well, I mean, to me, I would start with Udogie, definitely at left back. But to me, if for not selling Spence means we're probably looking at using him. So if he's not going to be in European teams, this is tonight where we've got to see Spence at right back.
By the way, friendly reminders, Region is still registered, right? So I guess technically it can be Region on the left, but I don't suspect we'll see him, right?
Yeah.
Technically, there is a possibility.
I'd rather see Regulon at left back than Spence at left back.
I don't think it's fair to Spence to have him play, his one starting game.
Because, that's not his position. And if he's trying to get a place in the squad, you can't keep playing him out of position.
Yeah, I was about to say playing high line with Davis and Dragoshin, even against a pub team, would be an issue. Even so if we go with those two with no pace, even against Coventry, I can see a bunch of issues there. So I'm hoping that Ange drops that high line by 10 yards or so, because with no pace there, without Mickey, and seeing Davis and Dragoshin try to chase wingers on the counter, that's not going to work for us. So that's my fear.
I try to avoid playing Davies like people try to avoid traffic after rush hour. But Thomas here saying, we will win tonight, boys, but don't take that club lightly because they are dangerous up front. Dave and Jack, I love you guys. Come on, you Spurs. Thank you, Thomas. You're really kind to us, man. But he's confident of the win. I am confident of the win, despite some of our reservations of how things could end up going and also the recent form and the context around Spurs. But I am confident that this should be a pick-me-up kind of performance for us where we do get over the line. We get into the next round. We have something to look forward to and, going deep into maybe one of these cup competitions. And this is our first chance of doing that. We have to get off started right. It feels like with these cup competitions. And this is our first chance to do so. We also get to see different players, Mikey Moore, Gray, Bergvall, just get kind of a palate cleanser of just different guys on the pitch, which I think should be nice. Jet Spence as well, who we were just mentioning, and Dragoshin too. So it should be nice to be able to see different players be given a chance, and as well to see hopefully a convincing performance. But anybody have any sneaky feelings that Coventry City are preparing an upset here tonight? Does anybody have any?
Every time all the fans are confident, like against Leicester, we bottle it. For some reason, I have no idea why. So there is no reason why we shouldn't get the win, but I don't know. Spurs are Spurs, right? You never know.
Are we kind of overlooking Coventry City, or is it okay for us to just expect a win at the end of the day? Or are we not giving them enough credit?
I don't think you can ever expect to win, but I think tonight, I don't think there's an option. There isn't an option to lose. That's the way you've got to look at it. I know that it is a possibility, but we cannot afford to lose tonight. It really is one of those. We said against Arsenal, we can't. It's more of a don't lose type thing. But I do think tonight is a bigger game than the Arsenal match in the senses of we really, the expectations of the fans. If we go out tonight, it is gonna be an absolute meltdown.
Yeah.
I am not coming back on a channel for a month. I'll tell you now if we lose
Same.
tonight.
It's a cup final for sure. Every
Yeah.
cup game from now on is going to be a cup final because all the expectations, all the fans will not accept losing. So it's
Well, I think I agree with you, Soren, that this has been a game that, yes, North London Derby is always a must win, but this is actually more of a must win without kind of that emotion and that sort of rivalry and bias, that goes into the North London Derby. This is just a must win for the fans to lift their spirits, must win for the players to lift their own confidence and spirits in themselves, as well as the manager. And for the manager's sake, I just don't think this is a game that he can lose at all whatsoever. He would be definitely, putting himself, up for a lot of pressure. Before the lineups come out in just a couple of minutes here, I did have maybe a question on the goalkeepers. Vicario, he's kind of been under some criticism this season. Hasn't dealt well with set pieces. You'd like to think that Coventry City, that would probably be the way they would try to hurt us, if they can. Do you maybe go with someone else, give someone else a chance, in the goal, or do you stick with your best?
You've got to play Vicario.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
there isn't a time on earth where the goalkeeper shouldn't be able to play every game if he's fit. It's not like he has to do a lot, is it? So there is no way on this earth I am taking Vicario out of that goal.
Yeah, same.
Yep.
I also have to say that I personally think people are overdoing the criticism on Vicario. I'm not saying he's like safe from criticism and we shouldn't point out his mistakes. I think he should be more commanding in the box when we defend set pieces. But I've seen some mad takes about Vicario, right? I think we as Spurs fan base, we really like to find ourselves a scapegoat. And I honestly, I think we are running out of scapegoats and we are trying to find new ones. And I've seen a lot of Udogie and Vicario slander recently. As I said, I'm not saying they are perfect and their performances. Yeah, I'm not saying their performances of Udogie and Vicario were great in the first game of the season, first 4 games of the season. But I don't think they warrant such big criticism towards them. And I still think Vicario, even with his negatives on the defending of set pieces, I still think he's 10 times the goalkeeper Fraser Forster is right now. So I don't see a reason why we shouldn't play Vicario. That's one place where I don't think we should ever consider rotation unless we have to. Right?
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Are you guys at all concerned about maybe Spurs' recent away form? And does anyone have an explanation for that? I mean, I think we've only won 2 out of the last 11 away games. I mean, is there any fear that, Spurs might not get a convincing performance? Because it seems like our best performances only come at home.
I think it depends how brave Postecoglou is tonight. Like we said earlier, I mean, he's on a hiding to nothing, whatever he does. But if he plays the kids, or he plays a certain amount of the kids, to me, they are going to be the easiest ones to get up for this game. Doesn't matter whether it's home or away. You've got players like Bergvall, you've got players like Gray, Jed Spence. They know how to go to a Coventry and play. That's the level they've played at for the past. Udogie to a point. These players should very easily have more than one reason to go out there and play away from home and play better. And in some senses, it's probably going to be easier to go away because there's kind of less expectation. Yes, you've got the away fans, and I get all that, but it's if you're at home and things are going wrong and the crowd turn on you, it's horrible.
I mean, I've seen Ben Davies look like a deer in headlights, against NS Mura and Vitesse. So it's hard to know whether we will have the right mentality going into these away fixtures. I mean, does anybody have any explanation for, example, Leicester City just this season, right? We were dominating the game. We should have been 2 goals, 3 goals up by the end of the first half. And then in the second half, we didn't go on to punish them and, give ourselves that distance, between ourselves and them making a comeback. By the moment that we conceded from one chance, and we barely gave them a sniff at goal, and they did score that one chance with Vardy, all of a sudden Spurs crumbled, and it looked like actually Leicester City were going to go on and win the game. So are you guys fearful at all that we just don't have the right mentalities going into these away fixtures?
No.
Are we fragile?
That's definitely an issue. I mean, we talked about it before. We don't have any leaders in the pitch, right? The leadership isn't there. So when things are going bad, there's nobody to take charge and take control of the game. But as the boys already said, playing the kids, that they'll bring enthusiasm to the game. Our issue in the past was when we play our strong team, a lot of players thought that these types of games, they're too good for those games, and the energy wasn't there, the passion wasn't there. So I feel like if we mix in the kids, I think they're going to give us a better chance of winning, especially away to a team like Coventry.
Michael, do you have any concerns about, you've been here before with us for Enes Mira for, some pretty bad, exits in the past. Are you worried about kind of Spurs' mentality going into these away fixtures, especially cup away fixtures, not even just regular Premier League games? These are, cup away fixtures where it's not like you can end up, just sacrificing 3 points and move on. You're out of the cup and you're out of the competition in general. There's no going back.
Yeah, I always repeat this, that those type of cup competitions and cup ties between a big club and a smaller club, with all due respect to Coventry, of course, right? But I think the most essential thing about those ties is the belief of the fans when you go away, right? I think if you go to a Coventry and you just slap 2 past them in the first half, right? I think the whole stadium just loses faith. And I think at that point you just cruise to the victory. But I think the longer you make this game a contest for the opposition team, the worse it gets for the big team. And I feel I have this, I want to make example of us going to Sheffield and losing 1-0, us going to Middlesbrough and losing 1-0 under Conte, us going to Fulham and losing on penalties, right? Even though Fulham is a Premier League team, right? But I think the longer you make it a contest, the worse it gets, because the fans, Coventry, I bet you the Coventry fans going into this match, they are kind of aware that we are a better team, right, than them. But I think the longer you give them hope, the more they will get fired up, and you can see 70th minute 0-0, and the stadium will be rocking. Every single foul, every single set piece, every single counter, the whole stadium will be rocking, right? So the sooner you put the game to bed, the better, right? Because I think if you are in a similar situation, 70th minute, but you are winning 2-0, and Coventry get a set piece, there will be a lot of noise, but there won't be as much belief behind it, right? So, and this to kind of answer your question, this is my issue with our recent form away, right? I don't think we've been able to put the games to bed soon enough, right? Mm-hmm. And it's been happening in the Premier League, in the cup competitions. That's the way I look at it, right?
The way I see it is Spurs have just been so fragile in these away games when we do end up conceding. We played really well at times, going away from home. I've seen games like Leicester City. I thought we were the better team for 60 minutes. We were all over them. We should have been 2-3 goals up, but then we weren't. And the moment we conceded, the mentality just completely flipped on the players. They just gave up on themselves, and it looked like Leicester City were going to go on and win it. I'd say the same thing with the Newcastle game, where we were toe-to-toe with them for that first half. I think we both dealt each other blows. They were both kind of threatening. But the moment that we concede, the moment that we kind of feel like that we can't get over the line and actually get the ball across the goal line, we do end up, for some reason, just kind of losing our heads drop, and we don't actually go on and get what we deserve, but, from a good performance. And that's been the funny thing with Spurs this season, is there have been some elements of really good performances there, but the heads seem to drop at a certain stage. And that's happened, I think, in the away games so far, in the case of Newcastle and with Leicester City as well. If we were to go with... Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm saying I do wonder who'll get the captaincy if Son, Romero, and Maddison are out. That's going to be interesting. If Maddison plays, I don't want to see him as a captain, but it's going to be interesting who Ange.
I think one of those three will play, and one of those three will be And to me, I think it will be Maddison. I think Maddison will be in the midfield for the simple reason I do think Solanke has to start, and that's why I think he'll drop Son. and Son will be on the bench. But I mean, you look at it that way, and you know, we talk about the sort of why we're not winning away. What we need is Solanke to put one of those goals in early. If he puts the ball in the back of the net relatively early on, I think we'll see a different Tottenham team tonight. I really do. I think the belief will start to come in, and it will be one of those. If we go 1-0 up early, I think we'll easily win. I really do.
Yeah.
What have you made of
Yeah.
the criticism that Solanke's gone under, Soren? You know, a lot of people feel like they're saying, oh, this is why he's not good enough. I mean, have we seen enough of him to really make a judgment?
No, he's played 2 games, and I mean, the first game he played, to me, he just needed the ball to go in the back of the net. He had some good touches, and the thing, his hold-up play has been pretty good. He's closing down quite well, and he's played 2 games for us. Come on, I mean, bloody hell, what? I mean, we go back to Harry Kane. Harry Kane never scored a goal in August for however many seasons. You know, and I'm not comparing him to Harry Kane before somebody jumps on my back, but you know, give the guy a chance. 2 games he's played. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, but by the way, Maddison is a Coventry graduate, right? If I recall correctly. I think
he's going home.
Yeah, but by the way, I think in terms of captaincy, if Ben Davies plays, he will get the armband, in my opinion. Because like he is the longest, serving player, whatever, right? So I think in Davies' place, he will get the armband.
If Ange were to go with, let's say, Timo Werner up front, what would be your reaction to that? Is that someone that deserves to start in a game like this, or would you see the logic in him going with Timo Werner? Or is that a sign of Ange, again, maybe being too loyal to certain players that aren't good enough?
I can see him starting Timo. I can definitely see him. I will not be happy. Every time I see him, I think I have this allergic reaction. And, I have this, I'll be upset. But I think there's 80% chance that Timo starts.
Yeah. I think it's almost nailed on that he'll start.
Yeah.
I will be gobsmacked more if Son starts on the left than Timo.
The Son is not going to start. Wilson, maybe Wilson.
I think Son is on the bench. Kulu's probably on the bench, unless he plays Kulu and drops Maddison. I mean, I suppose that's an option. And puts Kulu in that attacking midfield. Maybe that is a better option because Kulu's a better defensive player as well. I just think until we see the lineup, there's so many permutations, and it's going to be one of those that I don't know. I just think to a point, Maddison has a point to prove, and is going back to Coventry and things like that. And I was almost going to say he's got a calmer head on him, which I think for me, Maddison has that better insight for those passes, and Maddison to me will give Solanke a better chance of scoring than Kulu does. Kulu is maybe a better option as a one-off player, but I think Maddison has that better eye for a pass.
Yeah, my issue with Maddison though, if the game gets rough, right? If there's going to be fouls and Maddison is not that guy.
No, right? I agree with you.
He's a luxury player. He's not the guy to be in the trenches to actually, play.
No, I fully agree with you. Yeah, I fully agree with you.
Well, if let's say Bergvall is given the chance, has Maddison nailed down that starting position? But if let's say Bergvall is given the chance and he plays well enough, should he be able to start against Brentford? Basically, what I'm asking is, are there any spots that technically haven't been nailed down or really totally, sealed up, as guaranteed starters? Are there some players that if they're given the start tonight that are maybe more on the fringe side of things, if they play well enough, should they play again against Brentford? Let's say Mikey Moore is an example as well.
I think Maddison, purely like seniority wise, I think Maddison is the starting attacking mid in our team. And honestly, as much as I give Maddison flack for his recent performances, I think we need to play him into form, or at least try to play him into form. That's the way I look at it, right? I don't know. I just think he's too. The potential of him being good is too big to like risk starting Bergvall, in my opinion. But that being said, if Madison doesn't perform good against Brentford, I think Bergvall should be coming on at like 60th minute, not Werner, right? I think the Werner for Madison substitute in the North London derby was really bad, in my opinion, and I think we should be looking to give Bergvall as much minutes as we can. But I think he's an 18-year-old. I think that there will come time when he will challenge Madison properly. I just don't think the first season he plays for our club as an 18-year-old should be already like a moment where he displays his like a let's be honest, prem proven really like class player, right? Not world class. No, I'm not saying that, right? But Madison is one of the better attacking mids in the league if he's on form, right? So I would rather give Madison plenty of opportunities to play into form, right? If we had Eze, for example, that would be a different thing. Then I would say that we should be like dropping Madison, right? But I think with Bergvall, he's talented, but he's 18. I would rather see him like getting minutes of Madison while being a substitute and all that stuff, right?
I think the thing with Bergvall and Gray to an extent, if we were sort of coming into the second half of the season and they'd played 4, 5, 6 times already for us, then I think the argument is there that they can drop Madison or whoever to play these kids. But I think coming in and your first, if they do start tonight and your first start against Coventry and they play fantastic, it's not enough to see. We need to probably let them come on with 20 minutes to go against Brentford and then start them again in the European Cup. They need more than 1 or 2 matches. They will eventually be the starters. I don't think there's much debate about that, or there is debate about that, but these Bergvall, Gray and players like that will be starting soon, but they're not ready yet. It's not time yet.
For me, I feel like there's plenty of spots open for contention, after this game, if they play well enough. I mean, Basuma and Sonny and Romero and Porro are the only people that have scored for us, and Dan Burn technically are the only people that have scored for us this season. I mean, Johnson hasn't scored. Timo Weenie hasn't scored. Solanke hasn't scored. There are a lot of Madison hasn't scored. I think there are a lot of spots open for contention here if they play well enough. So if Mikey Moore, let's say, has a blinder, he should, in my opinion, be given the start then against Brentford. Or if, let's say, Odebear starts on the right wing and plays really well, gets an assist or scores, he should be given a chance on that right wing. No one, in my opinion, has basically played well enough to deserve to just be thrown back in the starting lineup again. Against Brentford. That just you look at it. Sonny's the only person who scored at all this season, basically, for us, and then the rest of them are defenders.
Yeah, but Jack, I think it's a bit different with Odebear because he's already had a season in the Premiership, and I know he's only 19, so he's only a year older. But that year and a full year in the Premiership is a big difference to Bergvall and Gray, say, coming in. And I suppose even Jed Spence, because he hasn't really had any time in the Premiership neither. These players are a little bit different than they don't have the experience of playing in Premiership matches yet. I can understand that. I've got 3 pups as well, and yeah, they do. They wreck the place. But Bergvall, from what we've seen of him, is going to be an incredible player, and he will soon be starting for Tottenham Hotspur. It's just not time yet.
To your question, Jack, I think there are only 3 spots in starting 11 that are up for grabs: right wing, number 6, and number 8. Right. I think we can see players in and out into those positions based on form, but I think all the other positions are nailed on, at least in the league.
Yeah, probably. But that's where, I think if we see an Odebear be given a chance, or if we see Mikey Moore hopefully be given a chance, I hope they can play well enough, because I feel like there are some positions in the squad where I mean, the standards are quite low, actually, and the bar is quite low. I mean, you only have to basically just do some of the simple basics, it feels like, of being a forward or being a number 6 or a number 8. And I believe that position is yours, in my opinion. So I hope that Odebear is given a chance, or Mikey Moore is given a chance out on that right wing. And then if they play well enough, that they can be given, another chance against Brentford. Because at this point, 4 games into the Premier League season, we've already, I think, seen enough of some of these guys that have been rolled in, week out, and they're just not doing the job at this moment in time. So I feel like we, hopefully get to see something else. Ange switches it up a little bit, and we're just waiting to see. Just think about a minute now, so I'm just holding my finger over the refresh button on the Tottenham Hotspur page here, and they're showing pictures of Radu Dragusin, Lucas Bergvall coming out, hoping that they both get the start and we get to see good performances from them. But I just don't think we played nearly well enough for that many positions in the team to really be nailed down by anybody, except for, I guess, the main sort of crew of people like Vicario, Pedro Porro, probably Udogi as well. And then maybe a Son Heung-min is kind of the only position that I think, is technically nailed down on the team, just because we don't really have that great of competition in those spots as well. And, you could argue that Sonny, even though a lot of people have frustrations with Sonny this season, he's our top goal scorer at this moment in time, so, there's only so much criticism that we can have. I think the lineup should be coming out in just a moment here. If anybody does need to pop off, they certainly are welcome to
We've got
do
time.
so.
Yeah,
There it is. Finally got it up.
Okay.
Big up, Michael.
Quick comment from me, and I'm going, right? Okay.
Oh, no!
Forster. Oh, I was right about
Forster is in goals.
Oh, wow.
Ray at right back, Dragusin,
Dragusin.
Davies is captain. Whoever called that, I definitely am not happy with that case. Udogi, Bentancur, Star, Bergvall, Odebear, Solanke, and Timo Weenie. So some of our fears have come true. Timo Weenie given a chance over Mikey Moore. I don't really know why that's the case. I don't know why.
But he's on the bench. He's on the bench more. So I predict he will come on.
Yeah, why isn't
Spence on the bench.
Spence is on the bench. Yeah,
So
Udogi given the
Davis is
chance.
playing, Gray's playing right back then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Gray right back,
That's it.
Udogi left back, Davis Dragusin pairing, right? Bentancur 6, Sar 8, Bergvall 10, Odegaard, Werner wings, and Solanke up top, right? I mean, it's kind of what I expected. Maybe like 1 or 2 names I would have preferred to be different, but other than that, I think the lineup is okay. And we have a really strong bench, right? When you look here, it's all composed of starters and Mikey Moore. So I hope to see Mikey Moore starting today. And wait, Jack, Romero is not in the squad, right? No, Romero and Van both not in the squad. That means they didn't travel.
So they're really given a proper rest.
Yeah. That's good in my opinion. Okay, I have to go, guys.
Thanks for your time, Michael.
Good job, Michael.
Michael.
Yeah. See you.
Thank you, Michael. Great work, my friend. Soren, if you need to go as well, no one's holding you
I'm
prisoner.
all right for a couple of minutes just to quickly talk about this, but I can't believe Foster's starting.
Same. That's my only big issue with this lineup.
Yeah.
Is Forster.
The rest of the team, I'm absolutely gutted for Spence that he's not starting right back. It just does not make sense to me. As much as I want to see Gray, don't get me wrong. I mean, that obviously tells us that Gray is probably the backup right back now. So,
well, Spence had a good preseason, Soren. Like that's where it also feels harsh.
Yeah. I mean, if we're not going to play him, why keep him? That's what I don't get. Looking forward to seeing Bergvall. I think it's a decent team apart from Forster. That is the worry with Forster and Davis in the same team.
Yeah,
that is the worry for me. I am concerned, but I'm going to go and I'm going to say we're still going to win 3-0. Come on, you Spurs. And if we lose, I'll see you next year.
I'll see you in a month. You said a month. Yeah. Maybe it'll have to be longer than that. But Soren, thank you for your
Soren.
Thanks for giving up your time.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
big
you.
up to you all.
Thank you, Soren. Great work. For me, my problems with this, Eugene, and give me yours as well, and then we can start wrapping things up. And thanks to everybody that's stayed with us this whole time throughout the stream. If you can, smash the like button, keep getting in the comments. But my big issue is Forster. I think Forster, we got the last like juice out of the squeeze with him, when we put him in for Lloris during that period. But I did think he needed to go after that. I just feel like he's showing the signs of age. He's showing that he's not really at the sort of standard or the level that we need. He can't even really play, like as a sweeper keeper or anything like that, the way that Vicario is. He's probably better from set pieces than Vicario. But apart from that, like I can't really say that he does much that Ange Postecoglou really requires from his goalkeeper. So there's a lot of risk there. And then I agree, not giving Jed Spence a chance just feels kind of harsh at the end of the day. We could have tried him at left back. It's not natural to him, but we could have given him a chance there. Davies is captain. I just don't really know what leadership qualities Davies actually has, because a lot of the times that we have been embarrassed in these cup competitions it feels like when Davies, Dyer, and the crew have been in the team and are supposedly our leaders within the squad. And we've been embarrassed on so many occasions when these guys have been given these sort of leadership responsibilities. And then going into kind of the forward line, I just don't know what Ange Postecoglou's loyalty to Timo Werner is. He doesn't start him. He's kept him on the bench for most games. He only seems to roll him out in like the last 10 minutes or so in a game. So why not gives it to someone like Mikey Moore, who I think is far more deserving, far more of a future at Spurs, and in my opinion, might even be a better player already at this point, even though he's only 16, 17 years of age. He probably is a better player than even Timo Werner is. So that's another one that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. Again, as I said before, playing a high line with Davies, Dragoshin, and Forrester, I'm getting nightmares as we speak. I mean, that's going to be comic relief. Hopefully, it's not going to come back and bite us. Where. Yeah, with Timo, I agree. I would have even played Johnson instead of him because Johnson needs some confidence. But we'll see. And also with Udogie starting. So if he's starting right now on Wednesday, given his injury issues, do we play him on the weekend? And if not, who plays on the left? I think that's also a bit risky. He needs some rest as well. So we'll see.
We'll see how this goes. We'll see how this unfolds. That definitely some potential picks there that not a lot of people would have expected. I think probably Forrester is the biggest surprise. I think Spence being dropped to the bench is probably one of the biggest surprises. And maybe one could argue that Timo Werner was expected in some people's eyes. Not mine, though. I actually thought that Mikey Moore was going to be given that chance, or he would even roll out a Sonny or something like that, even though he probably needs a rest. I just feel like Timo Werner, his time at Spurs has looked, well enough. The fact that he's only being rolled out in the last 10 minutes of games, I think really shows where he is in the squad at this moment in time. And I'd rather just give it to someone else who's far more deserving. That's just me. We're going to go into this with hopefully some type of confidence that we can get over the line here. Spurs fans, they really need a win. Thank you for your time, Eugene. Great work
thanks,
from
Jack.
yourself. Any final words, on this game or any inspiring confidence?
I just hope that we get an early goal. If it's going to be 80th minute 0-0, all the pressure is going to be on the team, and it's going to be interesting. So I'm hoping we get an early goal and then just chill, relax, and enjoy watching some players play.
Yeah,
I don't want it to be a close game at the very end and having to sweat it out. That's going to be an issue for me.
Yeah, I definitely have some concerns about this lineup, but let's just hope we grab an early goal. Some of my fears, some of my anxiety can be put to bed. Want to see Solanke get off the mark as well. That should be nice. Hopefully he can get a goal today and maybe quiet some of the doubters, as well as also just get off the mark and give himself some confidence, going into this season. So let's hope that Solanke can get us one of those early goals. And thanks to everybody that's followed us along during this stream. We'll see you later for the watch along. Thanks to all the support today from Donovan Osterreicher to Dermatron, DJ Samuel, Joseph, Moondog, Edward from earlier as well. Thank you guys for all the support that you've shown us. Absolutely incredible. And Thomas at the end there, as well as Sava. Very, very appreciative of that. And we look forward to seeing you guys for the watch along after the game today. If you are a fan show member, you can send in your fan cams. Dave and I will upload those for the channel. Should be doing a Twitter Reacts as well for the next day. And let's hope that we can be celebrating a win on that Twitter Reacts. And hopefully you guys send in your fan cams, can be celebrating a win as well. But we'll see you next time. Come on, you Spurs. Let's grab a win today. Let's get deeper into the cup. Cup competition start now. Let's go deep into it. See you, everyone.